Oh, yeah.
You
Wait,
could
you do. You
you
gotta
could
show it.
additionally so what you could additionally do here is if you have 100. Oh, you already got him up.
Yo, gentlemen.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Thanks for having me on. I want to talk about the quantum physics thing, but just the political
Thanks
thing.
so much for the galaxy. Holy shit! Thanks so much. What's the name here? Let me Miss or MSCA Teach. Thanks so much, MSCA Teach. Or maybe it's like Miss Kateach. I don't know, but I appreciate that huge W. And I appreciate the galaxy. Thank you so much. Yeah. So what about quantum physics? Do you think quantum physics proves that God exists?
No, nothing proves that God exists. We're all going to have to make that no proof of God existing. Quantum mechanics, though, does point to materialism being dead.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, of
Because
course
I
I
could
do.
just take the Copenhagen interpretation and say that it's just uncaused.
Yeah, but that was what Einstein said, and now Einstein was proven wrong. So,
Yeah, famous. Well, no, wait. I don't think Einstein rejected quantum mechanics entirely.
well, yeah, with the EPR paper, he said that
You're cutting out. I
isn't a
can't hear
thing
you.
because he was a materialist, and then it turns out that quantum entanglement is a thing. Let me go to a place where I have better internet. Hold on a second.
Yeah, wait. So he rejected
Sorry
quantum
about that. Is that
mechanics,
any
and he was
better?
famously wrong in his rejection of quantum mechanics. He rejected the Copenhagen
Yes.
interpretation. In fact.
Right, because he was a materialist. That's the whole E equals MC squared. Everything is reducible to energy and matter.
Wait. So what's the material force do I need to add to my worldview to accept quantum mechanics?
You just have to at least posit the idea that there is an immaterial substrate of this reality.
Wait. So what? I no, I don't. In what way? I can just take the Copenhagen interpretation and say that it's uncaused, it's probabilistic, that there's
Okay,
nothing
then
immaterial
explain
about it.
quantum entanglement and the universe not being locally real.
Wait, and why would that entail that there's like wait, so first of all, what's your understanding of those terms?
Which part? The universe not being locally
Yeah,
real?
yeah. So what do you think quantum entanglement is?
Quantum entanglement, it basically was proven that two photons are going to be reactive to one another irrespective of location. So either they don't have a real property or they're non-local. There's no such thing as locality.
And what's your understanding of locality?
A place, a location in the universe, in time, in space. I mean,
Okay, wait. I'm gonna hold on. I think that this is like getting outside of my area of knowledge,
yeah,
but
bring
what I
Blitz on.
will do, yeah, if Blitz is in, I'd love to have Blitz on up. But
Hey,
okay, because I think I'm Robert, thanks so much for the $2 on Cash App. I appreciate that. W Robert in the comment section.
hey,
Thank you
Ian.
so much.
I wanted to pop up for a little bit here and say what's good to you. It's been a while.
Dean, you can't leave,
Cause
man. I want to see where you're at in your pursuit of either deism or if you're back to atheism, where you're at.
but I really want a coffee and a bagel.
Okay, go get a coffee and bagel and come back. Dude, you
Well,
told me.
I'm gonna run some Trump lives when I
Do
come
you
back.
remember the last time we
You can
talked?
come
You
on.
were
You can come on.
dabbling in deism, and I said I want to talk to you about why the Christian God is the most tenable belief system. And you
I
said you were
No,
going
I
to do
think deism
research.
is deism is vastly more defensible than the Christian God. It's like
Right.
not even close
That's
to
because
being
people
like
don't understand his attributes because of weird Christian dogma that was defining
Robert,
God.
thank
that's
But
well,
thank you,
that's
anyways,
true.
Robert.
I
Thank
mean,
you,
I think
Robert.
like the Trinity and the hypostatic union make your God like almost impossible without the rejection of at least those two.
right, but that's just as Dean leaves.
Holy shit.
I
Yo,
just
Hannah,
with
I appreciate you for the $10 on Venmo for the coffee and bagel. Thank you so much for the love, Hannah. Thank you.
Dean, I'm expecting the invite. We talked about it. You were going to do your research, and then we were going to have a discussion about this.
Yeah, also, if you ever want to come on my live and talk about politics, you were saying
I'm
some
not a
really
politics guy.
you were saying some really silly things in my comment section.
I just, dude, Parker, and like, how do you defend Biden at this point? I'm apolitical personally, but after the debate, I'm like, how are you still defending this guy? Are you getting paid by the DNC? That's all I said.
You gotta come on my live later. But
All
yeah, I
right.
appreciate you for letting me
Yeah,
out.
yeah, I appreciate you coming on up here, Dean. Thanks so much.
See y'all.
Dr. Blitz, long
Howdy.
time. How are you?
I'm in France.
Okay.
I don't know how good my connection will be, so we'll see.
So far, so good.
So where do you want to start?
I don't know. I was pulled up as a.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
So,
know.
what's
So by all means, continue. I'll just
so
answer questions.
VOR is saying that rejection of the the quantum physics basically entails that like immaterialism, or that there's like an immaterial aspect of reality based on quantum entanglement, and then like the universe not being locally real. So what do you make of that?
I mean, we've had this conversation a dozen times, VOR. But,
Yeah, we have, but more data keeps coming out in favor of my worldview and destroying your worldview.
which, like, what data?
Like the work of Anton Zeilinger and Alan Aspect, proving that quantum
Oh, you're
entanglement
talking
is
about
real.
the stuff. You're talking about the data that came out in the 70s and 80s.
Well, yes,
That
of
won
course.
them the Nobel Prize 2 years ago.
Damn, you must have been having debates for a long time then.
We've been debating for a couple years. He's a materialist. I'm not a materialist.
No, but like from the 70s, if that's the new
I mean,
data.
that's not new data.
What? So, are you talking about quantum entanglement? Are you talking about Bell's inequality theorem?
I'm just asking what new data you're talking about.
That the EPR paper was wrong. That quantum entanglement is a
That's from
fundamental
like the
property of this
70s.
reality.
Where's the new data?
The new data was the Nobel Prize issued by Anton Zeilinger
not
and
new
Alan
data.
Aspect.
That was in the 70s and 80s.
They just won the Nobel Prize in November of 2022, Blitz.
For work done in the 70s and 80s.
Validating the work that you reject, or you have rejected, or you
fine.
minimalize through materialism.
Wait a minute. Okay, so it just sounded like you said that we haven't spoken in like a year or whatever. It sounded like, from the way that you said it, it sounded like you said that in that time there's been new data that's come out. Is that not the case?
You and I haven't had a good discussion about quantum entanglement since at least we haven't hashed out what the validation of Bell's inequality theorem actually means for materialism. We haven't had that discussion because you have.
Sure,
I'll take it a step back. When you and I first debated about the collapsing of the wave function, you, for your justification, you used Everett's many worlds interpretation. Do you still ascribe to that interpretation of the collapsing of the wave function?
Well, it doesn't require collapse, but yes, I'm a many worlds kind of guy.
So would you want to tell everybody what the many worlds theorem is? Because it's wild.
It's not as wild as you make it out to be. The many worlds, and Ian's audience has heard me talk about this.
Tony, thanks so much for the $2 on Cash App. W Tony in the comment section. I appreciate
Tony.
it.
So for those who don't know, the many worlds interpretation is just the inevitable, the logical conclusion of accepting superposition. So if you accept the superposition of, say, electrons being able to be in a combination of spin up and spin down, the many worlds interpretation is just the logical consequence, meaning that, well, an electron can be in a superposition. Why can't a molecule? Why can't a cell? Why can't a person? Why can't a universe? All the many worlds interpretation is that the universe is in a superposition. That's it. It's the whole
It's
thing.
not it. You're absolutely minimalizing what this means because according to Everett, every variable change spawns a new branch of reality.
Well, it's just a superposition. When superpositions propagate outwards, that's what happens. When you have interactions between superposed states, you get larger and larger superposed states. It's still just superposition.
Right, but in this worldview, every time a variable changes, an entire new universe, reality, trajectory is created. Yeah?
No, it's just another splitting of the superposition.
So the many worlds interpretation, you're not saying it creates
There's not more
many
than one
worlds.
universe. There's not more than one universe.
Okay, well, maybe you can make this a little bit more sense to me because in my understanding, according to Everett, and I could read this, first off, it's probably wrong and the science isn't necessarily supporting it. It's a philosophic interpretation of the data rooted in materialism, and it is a very complicated. Do you think the Christian God's complicated? Should we read the many worlds interpretation for everyone just to see to better elucidate what I'm saying it is?
I mean, sure, you can read Everett's work if you want, but it's been 70 years since he wrote his dissertation on the topic, so my understanding is probably more modern than his.
Okay, well, can you explain it to me? Would you mind? Just so I can better know because I don't want to misrepresent your argument.
Yes, that the universe is in a superposition of states.
And what happens when the superposition is collapsed? That wave.
There is no collapse.
Okay, I'm going to pull this up real quick. Sorry to Google it with you guys. I just think that, in my opinion, Dr. Blitz is minimalizing what the many worlds actually means. So it's going to take.
Well,
me
I think Dr. Blitz can just like define his view for you, and then you should just engage with the view as it's been defined. Like, what's
Okay.
the problem with the way that Blitz has defined the view?
Because he's either intentionally or unintentionally misrepresenting what this theory actually posits.
Look,
Okay,
I
Nature
have
magazine.
my position on the matter. If you're going to cite someone else's position on the matter, somebody else's notion of what they think many worlds is, then
Okay.
I just won't accept that notion. I'll accept my notion.
Of course you will, in your bias. Okay.
Well,
so
wait,
Nature magazine-
Hold on. Because this is like just Blitz explaining to you what his theory is. So how is that like? This is
Because he's-
no
this-
more biased
because
than like
the-
anybody just
it
saying
is
like, well, this
biased
is what I
because
believe.
He's taking Everett's work and he's minimalizing it to make it more believable to
I haven't
defend his
even read
worldview.
Everett's work.
Then
I
how
don't
can you?
even care what Everett said.
It's the many rule interpretation posited by Everett. How do you not care what he says if you're
Yeah, and
espousing this
it's
idea?
been thought about in the last 70 years since.
Yeah, wait. This is
I don't care
this
what
is
Everett
like
wrote.
yeah, this is like as absurd as going back to like ancient Greece and like looking at like the atomists who thought that like everything was made of like atoms and then saying like, well, but you didn't believe the specific things that they believed about atoms in ancient Greece. You think that atoms are actually like fucking like protons, neutrons, and electrons? Like what? Like yeah, obviously. Just because somebody like was the founder of the work that then spawned like more interpretations and like offshoots from it does not mean
Okay.
that you need to adhere to their word. You can update and create your own theories based on these things as well.
But then you should be able to explain this theory a little better. Let me read this one line.
I just did.
From Nature magazine. From Nature magazine, originated by U.S. physicist Hugh Everett in the late 50s, this envisions our universe as just one of numerous parallel worlds that branch off from each other nanosecond by nanosecond without intersecting or communicating. It's called many worlds because you have infinite universes branching off. And Blitz is saying, no, it's one universe because that's fine. You can make up your own interpretation, but I just don't think that you should use his and say, I have my own interpretation.
This is why we call it the Everett interpretation and not the many worlds at least the people who are proponents of the Everett interpretation call it this. Occasionally it's called the austere interpretation, but the reason is because people misconstrue what is meant when they say worlds. They mean worlds as in things that cannot interact with each other. But that doesn't mean that they're separate universes occupying different spaces, reproducing mass or whatever. It just means that they're different branches of a superposed state.
Okay, so I'm going to stick with my position that superposition is a problem in materialism because you have this changing universe substrate, whatever this is. And in my worldview, you have basically an immaterial, illusory reality. You know, I'm a simulation guy. This would make sense inside of an information physics paradigm, basically. But in materialism, you have to invoke something like how do you explain this naturally or through material processes?
Wait,
and what I
can
think you're
you-
doing, go ahead.
Can you give like a definition of materialism really quick?
Everything is reducible to matter. It's the most simple definition you could possibly have. Everything is reducible to matter. And energy can be matter according to Einstein. It's Einstein's paradigm, basically, that the fundamental bits of the units of reality are either energy or matter, which are interchangeable.
Okay, so in what way is this not matter?
In what
Or
ways
well,
does
like
not
is in
matter?
what way like which part of this? So you're just saying that like energy is not matter?
What I think is the most
It's
fundamental.
not, by the way.
Well, yeah, no, and I know it's not, but I'm just like I don't think that that's how people define materialism. I think that
do you
people
think I'm
say
wrong
like
in that
matter and like the
definition?
like it's like
Let's-
matter and like the properties of matter.
Okay, maybe I'm talking about more specifically reductionism, which is
Okay.
which is part of materialism. Everything.
Well,
is
yeah,
reducible to
but that's
energy or
like
matter.
I don't think Blitz and I defend that. So you're just like shadow boxing.
I don't think so. I think let's think about this. Just this is a little bit of an abstract thought, but just to get where we're at and why this is a big conversation. I know people in the chat are kind of lost by this, but when we think about reality, if reality is purely material, everything should make sense. Everything should be this photon acting on this photon, this particle acting on this particle. But at the quantum level, we're seeing data that is contradictory to this idea. The universe being locally, not being locally real, which I do want to have Dr. Blitz talk about, shows that things either don't have real properties or they don't have real location.
Why are these completely describable using physical law then, if they're
You
not
mean-
physical?
They're not. It's not at all. Quantum entanglement is not at all explainable by using physical law. What are you talking about?
It's literally part of quantum mechanics, which is physical law.
How do you explain quantum entanglement through physics? Or do you mean like the laws of physics? Physical law?
Yeehaw!
entanglement
Thanks
is
so much
built-
for the hat and mustache, Jessica.
Entanglement is built in. It's like a fundamental feature fundamental to our understanding of quantum mechanics. Like
Right.
there's nothing like we describe it mathematically. It's part of the laws of physics.
How does something either communicating in real time across that infinite space, how does that comport with the laws of, like, I guess, Newtonian physics? What laws of physics are we talking about
It's not
specifically?
communicating, it's a correlation. And that depends on your interpretation of quantum mechanics. But the point is the math still checks out. The laws still work out, no problem.
You say that, and it really frustrates me about your work, Dr. Blitz. Will you openly say that you are a very dogmatic materialist? You are a materialist.
Wait, I don't think
I'm not a materialist,
Blitz.
I'm a
I don't think
physicalist.
Blitz would ever describe himself as dogmatic. That's crazy.
It's not crazy. Physicalist, fine. Everything is reducible to energy and matter, yeah?
No, I don't think so. But that's not how I would define a physicalist. So
Can you better define it? I don't want to. Like I said, I don't want to shadow
Physicalist
box. I don't want to straw man you.
is this in slogan form? I'm just reading from Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Physicalism is, in slogan form, the thesis that everything is physical.
Right. So you think quantum entanglement is physical?
Yes, in that we can probe it, we can quantify it, we can measure it, we can manipulate it. Very physical.
Okay, I would agree with that. We can measure it, but do you
Measure
don't?
it, manipulate it, quantify it. In what sense is it not physical?
It's okay from physicality. That's fine. It's physical, but that doesn't mean that it's real. Can you agree with me that it can be physical and not have real properties, or do you think it has real properties?
So any given quantum state does have real properties. It's just a question of which real properties.
Okay, so if in the situation of quantum entanglement, let's assume that the photons have real properties, then do you agree that that locality is not true?
It's not clear. We actually don't have data on that.
But one of the two is true. It's either
Sorry?
it's either one
No,
of the
that's
two
not the
statements is
case.
true.
That's not the case. You're leaving out a third assumption, which is so the
variable.
Bell inequality has three loopholes, and I think you know this, right?
Yes, but they just closed up that last loophole with the Nobel Prize. That's why this is so important.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. What they showed is that the Bell inequality holds in our universe, which means that given the three assumptions, that it is the case that, or rather, that one of the three assumptions must be invalid.
And the third is the hidden variable.
No, the third is superdeterminism, or essentially that there's early correlation.
And so how do we go about proving that? Because what Dr. Blitz is
You
doing...
can't. That's like these are, well,
Oh, great.
I don't want to say you can't, but it hasn't been done.
Right, okay, so just for...
Basically, there are three assumptions.
Wait,
and so-
for chat, would both of
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mind like making all of your arguments in like Fortnite terms just for chat's sake?
Yeah. Okay, so there's this thing called the Bell inequality, which was posited in the 50s, I want to say, maybe the 60s, as a way of kind of probing whether or not the universe is actually quantum, or whether there's just something deeper that's classical that we don't understand yet. And so what was found in the 70s and 80s, and this is what the Nobel Prize was awarded for, is that under certain assumptions, it is the case that this inequality is true, that our universe is definitely quantum. And so these assumptions are the following. Namely, one, that so the kind of experiment that has to be done is you have two people far away from each other measuring things in a sort of independent way. So one of the assumptions is that there's no communication faster than light. So meaning that these two people who are far away from each other can't communicate instantly. That's assumption number one. Second assumption is that the actions taken by the people measuring these various things are not correlated. There's not like some predetermined correlation that caused them to measure the things that they did. And the third assumption is that when the measurements are made, that the measurement outcomes only have one outcome. Not that you make one measurement, you get one result. Not you make one measurement, you get many results. Those are the three assumptions. And if all three of those assumptions are true, then it is the case that Bell's inequality cannot be violated. It was found that Bell's inequality is violated, which means that one of those three assumptions must be false, at least one of those three assumptions. So the question is which one? Now, you could assume non-locality, which is meaning that you have faster than light communication. And so maybe you measure one thing and then it instantly tells the other thing what to do. Or alternatively, you could have, this is called non-definiteness, or counterfactual definiteness, depending on what you want to call it. Maybe when you measure one thing, you actually get many outcomes. This is essentially the many worlds interpretation, Alternatively, you might have that there was some universal conspiracy that the measurement outcomes were sort of decided at the Big Bang, and what the experimenters decided to measure was also decided at the Big Bang in a way that like conspired to make it look quantum, even though it actually isn't. So those are the three, and that would give you something called superdeterminism. So roughly, those are kind of the three different branches that you can go, given which assumption you think was violated. We have no idea which of these three assumptions is violated. We just know that at least one of them was.
That was a really good breakdown, Fortnite breakdown. I appreciate it. Sorry, everybody, for the rooster. I have a little homestead, and the rooster's a maniac. Okay, so agreed. I agree with everything Dr. Blitz just said. And in my worldview, and people say prove God, prove this, whatever, I try to go with Occam's razor. What is the most simple explanation? In my worldview, an immaterial, basically information-based reality better reconciles quantum entanglement and the collapsing of the wave function than what Blitz is positing, which is superdeterminism, which is basically at the beginning, like he said, a cosmic grand conspiracy. This is kind of the direction
I
that
actually
he's...
don't take superdeterminism seriously. But so which of those three assumptions do you think is violated?
I think that the things either don't have a real property and or locality isn't a thing. I mean, I know you don't like when I do this, but when you think about Minecraft, if you think about Minecraft, you have Steve, you have the sun out in the distance, and you go, okay, that sun is X amount of thousands of feet or miles or light years, whatever. The reality is the distance between Steve and the sun is an illusion because the information is coming from the computer system, and it just says in this pixel, this color, in that pixel, that color. So in that case, it is not real. It doesn't have real properties, and there isn't such a thing as location. Location is an illusion. To me, this is what we're seeing when you combine that with the collapsing of the wave function, which again, I know I don't want to misrepresent Blitz here, but if he's going superdeterminism, hidden variable, and many worlds, this is a more elaborate belief system with more commitments. I know Parker always says more commitments with the Christian God or whatever. There's more commitments to adhere to materialism to try to justify the weird quantum reality that seems to be underpinning what we're in.
So, to be clear, which assumption do you think is false?
I think the third one. I think superdeterminism is false. I think hidden variable is
Superdeterminism was
false.
the first one.
Okay, whatever the number is.
So you have a cosmic conspiracy, i.e., there is correlation between the things that the people measure.
Right.
You have non-locality, meaning that there's an instantaneous communication between the two people doing the measurements.
Irrespective of distance.
And then you have what you might call non-reality, but is more properly called counterfactual definiteness, namely that when you make a measurement, there's more than one outcome.
Right. So superdeterminism is the issue that I have, the cosmic conspiracy. That's the less likely
That's the
scenario
first
in my
one.
opinion.
I don't think that's true either, but it's an option that we can't rule out yet.
Okay, so what would you do currently? Because so Blitz and I have been debating. I have a debate with him. At that time, we were a little bit more friendly. This is a year and a half, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, even. It's on my YouTube channel. From that time till now, in my opinion, the data keeps coming in favor of my worldview, and materialism keeps looking worse and worse.
So what was the new data that came in specifically? Was it the data from the 70s?
No, I'm going to say this is going to sound bad. He's misrepresenting at least my argument here. The Bell inequality theorem, which was the idea that if you violate his inequality, then you would prove quantum entanglement. This was done to one of the highest scientific probability values we've ever seen by theoretical physicists, quantum physicists, Alan Aspect and Anton Zeilinger, and they were awarded the Nobel Prize for this in November of 2022 after Blitz and I had our first discussion.
And wait, but before, like, so when was the paper itself published?
There were
several papers.
Yeah, there's been a lot of papers on this. So it goes
Yeah,
back to
but when
Einstein.
when was the last one published?
Alan Aspect, Zeilinger paper.
They were awarded the Nobel Prize for their work in the 70s and 80s. They've done other cool things since, but that's what was cited in their work, in their Nobel whatever.
Gotcha. So I mean, it just sounds like there's no new, like, this isn't new data. It's like a new recognition, but like obviously being recognized for the Nobel like prize, like that's cool, but that doesn't like make it true or false. Like it was true or false in the 70s, or like it was like good work in the 70s. It's not new data. It's just like a new recognition. It's not new data.
Okay, this according to PNAS, we have 2011. The Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded.
There's no way that that's the name. Come
It's
on.
PNAS. It's a real thing.
Yeah, not PNAS. That's funny. PNAS. Sorry, I should use the acronym there. Let's see. 2012. There was a Nobel Prize won in 2012 for this. There was one at long last. Quantum theory was revisited for the first time in 10 years, and indeed, 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to Aspect, Klauser, Zeilinger for experiments with entangled photons, establishing the violation of Bell inequalities and pioneering quantum information. And we can look at when this was, but the Nobel Prize was issued in 2022. I think this paper was written more recently.
Right, but the Nobel Prize in 2022 was awarded for work done in the 70s and 80s.
Let me look at this here really quick. See, pioneering quantum information, Science, Nature magazine. When was this written? November.
Like, you can just go look at Alain Aspect. You can go look at his career, his Wikipedia page. It'll tell you when he did these experiments. I think it was like 1972.
Okay, well, according to Nature magazine, Pioneering Quantum Information Science was published on November 21st of 2022. Not that we're kind of in the weeds here, but it doesn't even matter particularly because this has been a discussion that went back to Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein. And Niels Bohr famously said science progresses one funeral at a time as he locked horns with Albert Einstein. And it was about, at the Copenhagen interpretation, at the Solvay conference, they had this discussion and Niels Bohr said, quantum entanglement is a thing. Einstein said, no, it's spooky action at a distance. Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosen wrote a paper basically saying that quantum entanglement isn't a thing, and I would say in their bias for materialism or Einstein's bias to defend his theory. Regardless, Bell came in later and said, if we can set up this one experiment, then we can prove whether or not quantum entanglement is a thing. In my opinion, there was basically a scientific cover-up of the progression of this information, and I would say because of materialism, and then Aspect, Zeilinger, and Klauser, they actually verified this. It was 100 years it took from when Niels Bohr posited the idea based on his theoretical framework to actually verifying this. And unfortunately, science was drugged, kicking and screaming to this result, which is there's something what looks to be immaterial about this universe.
Wait.
Why would they have been given the Nobel Prize if they were trying to cover it up? Like,
why would they have been given the Nobel Prize? I would say that at this point, it's irrefutable. The data is too conclusive. There's no further chance of I don't want to say hiding it. That does sound really bad, but defending materialism. And like I said with Niels Bohr,
wait. So can you point me to the direction of like the cover up? Like were these?
Yeah, I can actually. I would encourage everybody to watch a documentary on PBS called "How Hippies Saved Science." This is an author who researches very closely. What happened is when Bell came up with this theory, which was basically pushing back on Einstein, he wasn't allowed to publish this in any of the leading journals, including the Physical Review, which I know Dr. Blitz is very familiar with. The editor of the Physical Review.
Wait, hold on, because we're just talking about the research from like the 70s and the 80s. Is that?
It's all the same basic information, and there's been 100. So you asked me what is the cover up here? I can pull up the.
Wait! I want the cover up for like the 70s. Like, why would they ever be given like the Nobel Prize? Like, why they can acknowledge it and just not give it like the Nobel Prize?
They weren't given the Nobel Prize. So if Dr. Blitz is correct, and this is work they did in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't recognized for 50 years. It wasn't recognized for a Nobel Prize.
By the way, I'm just on Alain Aspect's Wikipedia page. In the early 1980s, while working on his doctorate d'état, I guess because he's French, he performed the Bell test experiments that showed that Albert Einstein, Boris Podolsky, and Nathan Rosen's putative reductio ad absurdum of quantum mechanics, namely that it implied ghostly action at a distance, did in fact appear to be realized when two particles were separated by an arbitrarily large distance. See EPR paradox and aspects. Like it specifically says in the 1980s, he performed the Bell test experiments.
Okay, then why did it take him 42 years to award the Nobel Prize? To get the Nobel Prize awarded for their work.
So Penrose, Sir Roger Penrose, who's 93, he got the Nobel Prize last year, and this was for work done in the 70s. Like sometimes it's just not awarded for 50 years. Like that's normal. It's okay. Like Peter Higgs did his work in the 60s, and he got the Nobel Prize in like 2016 or something.
Okay, and that's fine. Great. Science is slow to reward progressive information, or it's just overloaded with administrative responsibilities. However, this happens. But the question Ian asked was, "What is the cover up?"
Well, wait. I just want like the cover up for like this specific aspect because this seems like completely indefensible. Okay. Well, yeah, like this specific like what's the cover up for?
Okay,
The
so
researchers in the 70s,
right, I'm going to cover
who
that.
got
So
who got it in like 2022. Do you have any evidence that this research
yes,
was like covered up or suppressed,
do.
like this specific from the 70s?
I do, and I can. If I mean, it's going to really bore your guests, but we can look this up and I can verify this. The work of Bell, rather than being celebrated and put up front in front of science to be scrutinized, observed, whatever, responded to, they would not allow his paper, the Bell inequality theorem paper, to be published in the major reviews, in particular the physical review, and the editor was quoted as saying, anybody talking about quantum entanglement needs to be basically barred from or unable to publish in this publication. So when Bell published this, he had to publish it in a really obscure French magazine.
Wait, I'm not asking about Bell. I'm asking about the researchers who got the Nobel Prize in 2022.
Okay, so I'm talking about the cover up to that point. This was in the 60s.
Okay, let's
and
get
going
to
into
the cover
70s.
up of. I didn't ask about this, and I made it explicitly clear that I didn't ask about this. So,
Okay, so what do you
what's the
specifically want?
cover up of these specific researchers who got the Nobel Prize in 2022?
I was made aware by Dr. Blitz just now that this work was done originally in the 70s. It is
Yeah,
been my
which is
assumption,
normal
and I
for
want to
Nobel
look into this.
Prizes. Yeah.
Okay, in my opinion, and I have to research this more, the work that Aspect did and the paper that they published, the one that actually won them the Nobel Prize, was done more recently. He said he looked that up. I would like a little bit of time to research this. I believe that this paper that they won the Nobel Prize for was actually done more recently in the 70s. So basically, in my bias, which is potentially what this is here, they started doing the work in the 70s. They were probably pushed back on science. We still don't believe in this. Einstein was right, whatever. It took some time to get there, and then they finally did this test very recently, and that's why the award. They basically, in my opinion, they ruled out the hidden variable option. They closed that loophole that Blitz did, and I think this was done fairly recently. It would take me a couple minutes to actually verify that, but that's my understanding. I don't think they released this in the 70s. I really don't. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Aspect hasn't written a paper on this in like I'm just searching all of Aspect's papers from 2015 to 2022, and he has like some essays that he wrote, but he hasn't actually written any papers or done any experiments on this since like at least not since 2015.
So I can't do two things at once. If you guys want to hold the conversation for a second, I'm just trying to see if I can find this. 2017, I'm seeing Zeilinger's experiment in 98, which we know that. Then another experiment in 2017. Einstein, Podolsky, Rosen. Let's see if we can actually see the paper here. Did you find the paper, Blitz?
I mean, like, there's several because it was awarded to several people. You can go look at Aspect's paper from like 1982, I want to say.
For experiments with Fang. So this is actually going to really nail this here for us. For experiments.
Wait, it says it right here. I'm on the Nobelprize.org. Under Physics 2022, you go to Alain Aspect Facts, and it's and under Works it says one of the most remarkable traits of quantum mechanics is that it allows for two or more particles to exist in what is called an entangled state. What happens to one of the particles in an entangled pair determines what happens to the other particle, even if they are far apart. In 1981 to 1982, Alain Aspect conducted groundbreaking experiments using entangled light particles, photons. These and other experiments confirm that quantum mechanics is correct and paved the way for quantum computers, quantum networks, and quantum encrypted communication. So in the Nobel Prize Committee's own citation, they only refer to work from 1981 to 1982.
Okay, and looking at this a little bit further, it was a joint Nobel Prize between Aspect, Clauser, and Zeilinger. I will concede to you that Aspect's work was done in the 80s, which is in the 70s, by the way. But I know Zeilinger's work, in particular the quantum...
Clauser's was 1972. Zeilinger's was the 90s.
Zeilinger's was much more recently than that.
Yeah,
I mean, he's done it this whole time.
So the Nobel Prize Committee, again, says, regarding Zeilinger, in 1997 to 1998, Anton Zeilinger conducted groundbreaking experiments using entangled light particles, photons. So they're citing work from 1997 to 1998 for Zeilinger, 1972 for John Clauser, and 1981 to 1982 for Alain Aspect.
Okay. So if that's the case, I mean, and I'm willing to, I just want one more minute to research this, but I'm very familiar with the work of
don't.
Zeilinger. Do you remember when Zeilinger? I'm sure you
Yeah,
probably
wait,
know
let's
this. Einstein's quantum riddle, when Zeilinger took entangled particles from a quasar. This was documented in the 2010s. This was done very recently. So as they have awarded this, it's very potential, and my intention of mine here is to be scientifically accurate. I know people disagree with that about me. So if I'm wrong here, I'm wrong here. But my understanding with the Nobel Prize, with what Dr. Blitz is, the information he's providing me, is that it's been a career of work between these guys, multiple experiences multiple experiments over decades, and then finally awarded the Nobel Prize in 2022. So is that a fair summation, Blitz?
It doesn't seem like they're actually talking about work that. I mean, it could be. It could be that they considered that, but it doesn't seem like that was mentioned in the actual citation for the reason why they were given the award.
Let's see here. 11 laureates awarded Nobel Prize. I'm trying to find this. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. What I would say here is fine. Science moves slowly. This thing was initially presented back with Niels Bohr. It was further elucidated by John Bell. These guys picked up the work, and sure, okay, maybe they did this from the 70s to the 80s. The Nobel Prize was actually awarded this year or last year, whatever, 2022. So it's now been publicly recognized. The question that Ian had is why such a slow amount of time? My assumption is this doesn't look good for materialism, and there was a bias in basically slowing the release of this information. What Blitz is saying, it just takes time for science to do their due diligence, and I guess both are possible.
Yeah, okay. I have no idea. Is there like any reason why I should think that this entails like immaterialism? I also don't know why immaterialism would entail God, but that's a separate conversation.
Well, let's actually tackle those a little bit. So if the collapsing of the wave function, if superposition is a thing, if quantum entanglement is a thing, Blitz says that it's describable by physicalism, and I don't see how it is particularly, because to me it looks like you have a basically set of potentialities, I would even say encoded into this reality, determined by the conscious observer. This is, to me, this is...
No, wait, because the wave function collapses based on like interactions. It doesn't need to be like conscious for the wave function to collapse. Like, so when you, isn't there like the one experiment, is the double slit experiment just when they like fired like a beam of like electrons at it, which caused them to like behave in a certain way? Wasn't that just like the wave function collapsing, or am I mistaken about that?
I'll take my shot at it, and then Blitz can add his part or correct me. They shot photons through, which would be balls of basically light photons, but you would describe them as being, I hate to say balls, that's in the right way, but like little bits of information, little bits of light. They would shoot them through two slits, and you would receive, on the back plate was a, what is it called? I just had the word. You end up with a scattered what was the word here? What is the interference pattern? You receive an interference pattern where it looks like these little balls of light are careening into one another and hitting the back plate. If you have an observer measuring it, if you have a measurement device, it doesn't create an interference pattern. The single balls of light go through and impact the slit exactly where the trajectory that it was on the ballistics that it was on. So the question here is, if it's not being observed, why does it create a potential interference pattern, which we call a wave of potential? And if it's being measured, why does it react differently, which is it stays as a photon and hits where it follows the ballistic trajectory that it started on?
So what doesn't make sense to me about this is just like, wouldn't this all have happened exactly the same, even if there was no conscious observer in the room?
This is the problem. This is the problem. It should have no bearing on measurement. Shouldn't have an effect on the property of the material.
No, not the measurement itself. Like you can have like the measuring equipment. You're gonna do all of that. You can have like a recording device doing all of that, and then you just have no conscious observer in the room.
Right. It should be the same in.
So wait, you're saying that the experiment changes if there is a human present versus if there is like not a human present.
Yes.
But measurement can be done without a conscious agent.
Right. But it's still a conscious agent behind it because we are recognizing that there was an actual measurement. But yes, this is the problem with This is the problem with the double slit experiment and why it broke science. It's being watched, it's not being watched. It should be the same thing. It should always react the
Why?
same way.
Wait, hold on. What do you think a measurement is, VOR?
Measurement would be figuring out what basically measuring the outcome, measuring where this photon went and what it hit, what pattern it made, etc. Like a standard of what it did.
How exactly do you go about doing that?
They put a measuring device on the back plate that basically, the way I like to think about it is taking a tennis ball, covering it in paint, and firing it through, and it hitting the back wall, and you see where the tennis ball that had paint on it hit. So they didn't necessarily have to watch that it was being hit, but they could see that the paint splotch hit. Therefore, they know that that tennis ball hit that location.
I'm asking. So the whole double slit thing. The way that you conduct a measurement is you somehow figure out which slit it's passing through as it passes through, right? So how exactly does that work?
Didn't they? At first, they just saw the pattern, right? I don't think they were at the beginning of this. I don't think
if you're
they
not
actually
detecting. If you're just staring at it, nothing's going to happen. It's only when you actually try to figure out which direction information. So I can make this easier. Let's just talk about electrons instead, because they're easier to detect. So one way that you might do a measurement to figure out which slit the electrons go through, because the electrons will do the same thing. If you leave them alone, they'll make an interference pattern. If you measure them, which slit they're going through, it'll make like two stripes. So if you work with electrons, one way that you could do this is you could put like a magnetic sensor underneath one of the slits, so that when the electron passes through, right now, here's the issue. Magnetism, all forces really, they have this whole equal and opposite business. So if the electron is going to affect the magnetic sensor, the magnetic sensor will affect the electron. There is no measurement without interaction. So it's perhaps not so surprising then, once you realize that in order to measure something, you have to interact with it, that its behavior will change.
Which I understand that with electrons because of magnetism. My understanding
it's the same way with photons. The way that you would detect photons, it just requires more sophisticated equipment, which is why this typically isn't done with photons, by the way, because it's actually really hard to measure them without just absorbing them entirely.
So then this is kind of the hidden variable idea. You're saying that the act of measuring it is affecting either the property or the behavior of the electron.
Yes, that's what a measurement is. A measurement is, like in quantum mechanics, a measurement is just defined as an interaction.
Okay, so
in particular, it's an interaction between a macroscopic system and a microscopic system.
What about the quantum eraser, the delayed choice double slit experiment?
How you understand that depends on the interpretation that you subscribe to. But essentially, if you take the Copenhagen interpretation, then you actually have backwards causation. If you have the many worlds interpretation, then all you have is just a spread out wave function, which is very, very significantly less interesting.
It is significantly less. I really appreciate you communicating this, and
it's less fantastic, is what I'm getting at. It's much more boring.
Right, but in the Copenhagen interpretation, which Ian earlier said that he subscribes to this.
Yeah, I'm a Copenhagen interpretation.
So understand, defender. And Blitz can correct me if I'm wrong here. If you go with the Copenhagen interpretation, then with the delayed choice experiment, where the measurement was made after leaving the slit, you have to then reconcile this by saying it was retro causality, meaning that it went back in time and actually changed this information somehow in time. Is that correct, Blitz?
That's roughly right. But again, that's also not surprising given what we know about relativity, right? Like if you're willing to accept Copenhagen, which implies that relativity breaks down, then of course you're going to have some weird simultaneity of or relativity of simultaneity stuff, because if you have something happening instantaneously, then in another reference frame, that thing occurs backwards in time.
Did you understand that, Ian?
I was like checking my Discord really quick because someone was like running from I have like a debate against RC, and he was running for a while, but he did just say in screenshots a screenshot of the DMs, but in DMs, because at first it was supposed to be a debate about Christianity, and then he pivoted to like just a debate about God. He just wanted to debate a generic God, and now it sounds like it's back to a debate about Christianity, which is great because Christianity is just completely indefensible.
That's not true. I can defend it. You know I can.
Yeah,
and I
okay,
would love
wait,
to
so-
go into that next. So
Okay,
let's
so wait, let's do that. So do you think
well,
God
no, let's
is all?
really quickly. This is one point to make. Blitz explained this very well. It depends on your presuppositions. It depends on how you want to interpret this. But if you do adhere to the Copenhagen interpretation, Ian, which you said you do, then the answer to the delayed choice to measure experiment, the quantum eraser, is that this act of measuring it retroactively changed what this was back in time. It actually changes the past retrocausality. It changes the past information. So this to me, that's a very interesting thing to try to reconcile. And when I go back to believing that we're in some sort of information-based reality, we answer
much for the
all
harmony.
of
I
these
appreciate that.
problems. We answer observer effect, we answer measurement issues, we answer quantum entanglement. Being in an illusory information-based reality would answer all of these with less commitments. And I think that
Yeah, wait, no, but that's not the case though, because you have all the commitments to the information reality. This is like asking us, so why would we want to like okay, let's say that you have 10 bad Mondays in a row, and every Monday you have like a new bad thing that happens. Like one day you're late in traffic, the next Monday like somebody's coffee falls all over you. 10 like independent bad events. Now, you can either say that it's the bad Monday fairy. The bad Monday fairy is like following you, casting spells on you, and that
terrible analogy.
summarizes all of this. Or you can just say, well, that's just the way it is. Sometimes things are just like that. Either way, so I would prefer the explanation that you were just unlucky because it still appeals to natural mechanisms rather than appealing to a supernatural mechanism, which is deeply improbable. Yeehaw!
it's not
Thanks so
deeply
much for the hat and
improbable.
mustache.
And I think that's what we moved
Wait, so
into.
so in that scenario, you would prefer the bad Monday fairy?
No, that's a false dichotomy. It's a bad. First off, it's a shitty metaphor. Second off, that's not what I'm doing here at all.
Well, you can. I agree. You can say that it's a shitty metaphor, but do you have a critique?
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm not talking about having bad Mondays. I'm talking about when you take the preponderance of evidence for materialism and how you have to defend materialism, it takes more commitments than to say something outside of space and time created this reality.
No, it doesn't.
Yes,
Wait.
it does.
So it's just basic counting. Let's do some counting. So I believe in
Right.
natural entities, natural qualities, natural causes. You believe in natural properties, natural causes,
Supernatural causes.
natural entities, supernatural causes, supernatural properties. You believe in 6 things. I believe in 3 things. It's basic counting. Occam's razor comes in and supports naturalism.
Do the counting again, and what you said is it's a conflated version of reality. Let's take these pieces one by one. I believe in natural beings, yes. I believe in a natural reality, yes. I believe.
Wait. So it's natural entities, natural causes, natural properties. You believe in all of these?
Yes.
Okay, I do too. But that's all I believe in. And then supernatural
That's
entities.
not all you believe in.
That
you
is all
also
I believe in.
Okay, then where? I hate to. We just go back to this, but if you believe in purely natural processes, how did we get a universe?
Oh yeah, so I believe that we got the universe because it's just like infinitely regressive. Like there was never a starting point to the universe. Where do you wait? And I'll turn the question on you. Where do you think we get a God?
Well, the same thing that you would say. That God you're saying the universe had always existed, but God would have existed in a place that would allow such a thing. We live in a universe of beginnings and
where
ends.
is that place that would allow for such a
We live in a universe of cause
thing?
and effect. It's outside of this reality. So it's like let me explain it this way. If you wanted to say, Ian,
Wait. So what's the contradiction
No.
entailed by just thinking that there's an infinitely eternal
because
universe?
we live in a universe governed by the laws of physics, and we have laws like no such thing as a creation of energy. It always changes form. An object at rest will stay in rest unless acted upon by another object.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
if-
we also have such thing as like the Schrodinger's equations, which derives into the quantum eternity theorem, indicating that if there's like a non-zero total energy in the universe, then the universe existed forever. So
How do you get it if there was a non-zero energy? How do you get that?
just based on like the way the equation works.
Okay, fine. If you wanted to say, Ian, I'm going to do Apple. I'm going to hold you
Wait.
accountable here.
Do you concede that the universe was eternal, or do you have a critique of the quantum
But
eternity
I
theorem?
absolutely do not think that the universe is eternal.
Oh, then
and
so what's
science
your
doesn't point to the
critique
idea
of the
universe being
quantum?
eternal.
Then what's your critique of the Schrodinger's equations?
I'm not familiar with the Schrodinger equation of zero energy. I'm not familiar with that. You'd have to explain it to me.
Okay. I think, yeah, it's just that because the Schrodinger's equations describe how energy causes the universe to change. One of the implications of the Schrodinger's equations is that if there is a total non-zero amount of energy, then that implies that the universe has always existed.
If there was a non-zero amount of energy, how do you get that? How could you possibly observe repeat that? And if you have a zero energy state, where does the energy come from?
Well, wait, that's what I'm saying, that there's like not a non-zero energy state, or
Okay.
that there is, yeah, that energy exists.
I just want to say, hail Satan. I have 666 coins. I don't want anybody to ruin it, but you should ruin it.
Hail Satan, yeah. Let's get
That's
a W
funny.
Satan in the
You're
comment
six six
section.
six. Okay. So if you said, Ian, there's an other reality, not having to be a deistic situation, doesn't have to be the God of the Bible. There's an external universe situation that didn't have a beginning, that it always existed, and this universe is a product of that, which I think is what science is pointing to, then I would agree with you. That is a more logical belief system. But to say that the universe had some sort of wild reversal of entropy at the beginning, like if you listen to astrophysicists talk about this, you needed a violation of at least the second. I think you need a violation of all three of the first laws of thermodynamics. Even if you have a static universe, what would cause this to act and start to
No,
rapidly
wait.
expand?
I don't think we had a static universe. So right now, the universe that I defend is a big bounce, big crunch type universe. So we know that, or
No way.
there's like new data that came out recently that indicates that the amount of dark energy in the universe is decreasing, which means eventually the universe will no longer be expanding. When
Right.
the universe is no longer expanding, gravity will start reeling things in. It'll begin to contract back to a state that it was that we believe it to be
Right.
like before the Big Bang, where it will just go through another cycle of big bounces and big crunches. So
Right,
I don't think
that's-
the universe was ever at a static state. I think that it
I
was
really
always
don't
doing
think
this.
I think that was debunked a long time
So
ago.
wait,
Maybe
wait.
Blitz can
What's
actually-
what's your critique of this?
Well, the first critique of it is logic. You think
Yeah.
that
So what's the logical non or what's the
I will-
logical
you-
contradiction entailed
you
by the
think
belief?
that
What's the
if-
P and
let-
wait?
let-
Could you wait?
I
Could you
will.
tell me the P and the not P? I just want very clearly what is the P not P contradiction that is logically entailed by believing a big bounce, big crunch?
I'm not a philosophy guy. What does P not P mean?
So contradiction
about
is
gender?
like P and not P. No, not at all. So just like this circle is all good, and also some parts of it are not good, or like I said all good. That's confusing. Yeah, like God is all good, but also God is not all good. That would be P and not P. You affirm a proposition and also the reverse of the proposition.
Okay, I maybe understand.
Yeah.
So in this scenario, the idea that every bit of matter in this universe is going to collapse back into a point of singularity, that the Earth and the Moon and all of these things, as they collapse into each other, are just going to shrink into something infinitely small, infinitely dense. That is a wild belief system.
Yeah.
my friend.
What's the contradiction entailed by it?
Well,
Also,
the
that's not
constitution.
necessarily implied by the big crunch.
Yeah, explain
no
it to me
nece-
then.
You don't need an actual singularity. You just need a very, very small dense region.
So you think that the Earth and the Moon are going to collapse into something smaller than, like, you think the Earth and the Moon could fit into a soda can?
Well, yeah, if it's because like density is a concept, right? Like we can make things more
Like
dense.
black holes. What are black holes do this, right? If the Earth would if you collapsed Earth into a black hole, it would be like the size of a pea.
Okay, so now take every single planet. You got a lot.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot of peas. That's going to be a pretty big thing. You probably have at least a Earth-sized, world.
Yeah, it could work. I mean,
chewing-
sure, but like there's no rule saying that can't be the case. Right?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the contradiction. It seems like you can't find like the contradiction in my worldview.
I'm not necessarily finding a contradiction, other than it seems implausible to me that everything is going to collapse into, because the Big Bang was told that it was something, a period the size of a period on a piece of paper. Fitting the world and the moon and all these things into something that small is a grand belief system. Now, look, a point that I'm trying to make here. Go ahead.
What are black holes?
Black holes are whatever, energy, matter, sucking, collapsing.
Well, but there's something at the
small
center,
points.
which is lots of matter in one very small area, right?
So
One of the comments says you can't just make things more dense. Why not? What's stopping us?
So the whole universe collapses into a black hole. Then is this what we're talking about? And then the
Not
black
really.
hole spits it back out.
No, well, actually, some people do think that. By the way, I don't think that that's a good model. But no, the all I'm getting at is that like we know black holes are real things, they're obviously like extraordinarily dense. So I don't see why there's like an issue with imagining that the universe could revert to a state of extreme density.
Do we see, Dr. Blitz, black holes re-explode into new planets and new solar systems and new galaxies?
No, but black holes are also surrounded by a vacuum, which is why I don't think that our universe would collapse into a black hole. I think it would just be a very, very dense, roughly uniform state. That would be my supposition if I had to, if somebody put a gun to my head.
So the planets, nobody put a gun to anybody's head. The planets coming in, smashing into one another, recoiling, going around. Eventually, you just end up with this big mess of just matter and energy. And now it's a big mess of matter and energy. It's not a black hole, it's whatever. And then that rapidly expands again at the speed of light or faster. What causes that?
So there are a few possible mechanisms to explain how this works. I'm not like endorsing any of these, but there's something called loop quantum gravity, which is a proposed mechanism for it to
Did you say
explain behavior
Luke
of
quantum
gravity.
gravity?
Sorry, what?
Did you say Luke quantum gravity?
Loop.
Loop.
Oh,
Loop.
bummer.
Not Luke. So there's something called loop quantum gravity, which isn't like the most popular version of quantum gravity, but it's a model. And one of the results of loop quantum gravity, if it's true, is that the universe wouldn't collapse to a singularity. There'd be kind of like a bounce back at some finite size. On the order of like 10 to the minus 26 meters or something like that, or 10 to the minus, I don't know. There'd be some sort of bounce back. Basically, the pressure would get too high, it collapses, the pressure builds, and then it bounces because the pressure gets too high. Like that's one possible mechanism. Of course, there are other possible mechanisms, but...
Okay, so as of right now, this is what I'm talking about with commitments. We have this grand idea that everything goes out and then it sucks back in and then it reassembles and then it gets higher, hotter, dense, then it explodes back out. We have the many worlds interpretation, which is potentially that new universes are branched off whenever any variable is changed. We have hidden variables. We have reversals of entropy. At one point, is this a more believable worldview just to salvage materialism? And I would say it's
Wait,
not.
but this
the
is
worldview.
it's not about salvaging materialism. It's about saying things that are in line with the data. And it seems like
No,
there's
it's not
just
in
no
line
way to
with the data.
reconcile.
What
There's
you're
like
talking about is
literally
in line
no
with
way
the
to
data.
reconcile
What
like
data are
your
you talking about,
worldview.
Ian? Yes, there
Yeah,
is.
so the data that dark energy is like decreasing right now.
The data that dark energy, which they've never actually measured, its reason it's called dark is they have no idea what dark energy or dark matter are.
Wait,
If
the
there is-
data
if they even are
concerning
real.
dark energy, of course they've measured it.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is, but they can measure the amount of it.
Yeah.
No, they don't measure the amount of it. They measure the result
Wait,
of it, which
do
is
you want
the
to bet?
expansion accelerating.
Wait, do you want to bet? Let's bet $200 right now.
That they've measured the energy?
Yeah, that
what
they
are we-
measured dark energy. Yeah.
That they've measured. Explain to me what you mean they've measured.
Wait. Do you want
They've
to?
measured-
Because no. You made the
I'll
affirmative
bet you
claim.
on this. I'm
Yeah,
just
you made the
making sure
affirmative
that I know
claim
what
that
I'm
they've
agreeing to.
never measured it before.
Okay. Are you saying they've measured actual dark energy or they've measured the effect that they believe dark energy has? Tell me which one and I will bet you on this.
I'm just going to defer to Blitz on this one. So
they
Blitz, when you were
they measure the influence of dark energy in the same way
Thank
they
you.
measure the influence of
I
charged
wish you would have.
things.
I should have just taken the
Measure
bet
charge.
blindly, but I just wanted to set up the terms because I know the answer here, Ian, and you don't. They've never measured dark
But
energy.
that's
They've
how all
measured its
measurements
influence.
work, right?
well, yeah. Wait, what? Wait, like we can't like literally physically observe gravity, but we can measure it.
Okay.
We measure the influence of gravity. We measure the influence of dark energy. We measure the influence of charge. We measure the influence of.
Yeah. Wait.
Okay, like
Vor,
that's
wait.
how
Can
we
I
do it.
can I ask you what color energy is?
I don't know if it has a color.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. You can't see it,
Although
but
I
you can
don't
observe
know
the
if-
influence of it. Yeah.
On the magnet, like on
It's that
the
simple. Yeah.
light spectrum, it might have a color, but nothing that we could see. Maybe it's somewhere above ultraviolet, below infrared. I don't know for sure. But the point is, dark energy has been introduced, I would say, as a rescuing device to explain why the expansion of the universe is accelerating. It's called dark because it's never been actually measured. They believe that this is what's causing this based on materialism, but it's never been measured. And so that's what I was just, yes, I would
What
have
would it
bet
mean
you. I
to
just wanted
measure
to
it
know
in your eyes?
to measure dark energy, to confirm
Yep.
that it's an actual thing, to somehow
Well, so
quantify it in measurement.
So I mean, like, okay, let's go into hypothetical magical land, right, where dark energy is real.
So materialism. Yep.
Thanks so much
Yeah,
for
yeah,
I appreciate
hypothetical
that.
magic land where materialism and dark energy are real. What would you think a measurement of that would look like? Like explicitly, what would it mean to measure it?
We said one more time. I was looking at Parker's. That's crazy, Parker. We've been doing this for a long. If you think VOR is a good position, you are lost. That's crazy. Do you either of you think I'm lost in this discussion? Whatever. You're not going to rat out your friends, Parker. That's wild, though, Parker. You can come on. We can go 3v1. You can get Nixie. You can get everybody. I can go 6v1. I know
we
you
don't.
guys.
No, it's okay. I do think that if you're gonna make comments about people being like, did you say Parker was like bought by the DNC? Or
I asked him if he was being paid by the DNC. Yeah. That's
yeah,
what
well, I don't know. I
asked
mean,
him.
if you have like something to say, I'm sure like you could go debate Parker on politics.
Whatever. He said that in the chat. I didn't say he was. I'm not making the claim. I asked him if he was. I don't know how you defend Biden after that showing, but that doesn't matter. I'm not political. I want to move off that. Sorry for reading Parker's comment. Say the thing you said again, Blitz, and I want to make sure that I understand before I agree to it.
Right. So the question is let's imagine we're in magical whatever land where materialism is real, the Big Bang is a real thing, dark energy is real. Okay, all these things are real in this magical world, right? In this mysterious hypothetical world.
Right.
What would it look like to you to measure dark energy?
What would it look like to me to measure a totally made up imaginary thing? That's a tough one for me to answer. Well,
So
how would you guys
if you
measure
had-
God?
So if you had asked me, imagine that there is
I appreciate the roses.
a
Thanks.
particle. Imagine that there's a particle called a gluon, right? Imagine there's a particle called a gluon, and it has this property. It has a charge of 83. How would you measure that? Well, I would say, okay, well, go build a particle collider and start smashing particles and see if you detect something that has a charge of 83. So I can come up with a potential experiment to confirm or deny the thing that the thing that you're supposing exists. My question is, besides measuring its effect on things, what would it mean to measure dark energy?
Okay, wait. So I want to piggyback off of this. How do we know that gravity exists other than by its effects on things?
I mean, I think gravity is information, so it's interesting. I mean, that kind of plays into my belief system. The fact that we don't know what gravity is, we just know what it does, and we can't measure it, is a really interesting thing. I say this all the time. In Mario's world, Mario jumps up, he comes back down. What causes him to come down? Well, clearly it's gravity. When you look at it, it was actually information. It's coded that he comes up at X amount of speed and then he comes back down based on an information law. I would say gravity is probably similar, and I would say probably the thing, not probably in my worldview, the thing causing the expansion of the universe to accelerate is some sort of information thing that you can't see. Because the reality would be, if you're playing one of these video games, you can see the effect of these rules encoded into this code, but you don't know what they are and you cannot measure them. That's why when Blitz asked me to measure it, it's like, you're asking me to measure something that's totally made up. I don't know how you'd measure it, but if you want to do the particle thing that Blitz is talking about, they've smashed many a particle and they've seen nothing like dark energy or dark matter. So if that was the
Right, but
idea
dark
of
energy
trying to
isn't
do
some
it,
supposed particle. The models aren't that dark energy is a particle, right? At least not all. There are some models that say that, but those aren't that's not the leading explanation. So why would we expect that you would see dark energy in a particle collider?
well, we haven't. I don't know how they would expect to see it. In my worldview,
Well, that's my point. But
Okay.
if dark energy, I mean, Jorge just said in the comments, if dark energy is a property of space-time, how else would you expect to measure it besides measuring its effect on space-time?
I have I don't normally have nothing to say about this, but I don't have an answer for how you measure an imaginary thing. I honestly, I don't do what
Well,
you do,
look,
and I can't
this-
tell you how to
Wait,
measure
but
it.
how do you know that it's an imaginary thing?
Well, at this moment, we would know is a strong word. We could say that it's imaginary because we cannot see it or measure it in any kind of way. So it's a figment of an imagination at this moment. It would be like me asking you
Look.
how to measure God.
Oh, yeah, wait, there's lots of ways that I could verify whether or not God exists. For example, I could think about what would the world look like if God did exist, in the same way that we can ask
No,
what would
that's
the
not
world
the
look like
answer, Ian.
if dark energy
No,
wait,
no,
VOR,
that's
and
not
I
sufficient.
agree that you can say that's not the answer, that's not sufficient. But I want to finish my point. In the same way that you can say, here's what the world would look like if an all good, all loving, all powerful, all knowing God exists. And then we can notice that this is not how the world is, that the world is full of gratuitous suffering that an all good, all powerful, all knowing God wouldn't
Why are you
possibly allow.
using the
And in the same
always
way, we would say, well, what would the universe look like if dark energy exists? And we could say, wow, look, it's expanding. And then it's the effect of it is weakening. So yeah, we can propose like if this thing existed, what would we expect to see, and then observe compared to our reality what we actually end up seeing.
So not measuring it at all, which is fine, and that's fine. We can take that same approach. Go ahead, Blitz. Sorry.
But I mean, like, look, it sounds like you're saying like it's not measuring it, but if it is what we think it is, the only way to measure it is to measure its effect on things, in the same way that the only way to measure gravity is its effect on things. So this is the way that it's being measured. Like, this is measuring it.
So we talked about the history of science earlier. What has happened, and Blitz, correct me if I'm wrong here. In the Big Bang model, we see an expanding universe, we see redshift, and this was the idea that we started at a single point and it's expanding out.
Thanks so much for the good afternoon, Princess Leia. I appreciate that.
Based on how we understand the laws of physics, whatever the speed is at which this expansion happened would stay steady, potentially slow, but in a vacuum in theory stay steady. So when they saw that the expansion is accelerating and they believed in this Big Bang model, they said, well, we know this all came from a single point and we know it's expanding. It shouldn't be accelerating. Therefore, the model is right and something is causing it to accelerate. And this thing is something we can't measure. To me, this is just rescuing device. It's soft labbing, it's dry labbing, whatever it's called. It's like, yeah, well, this thing exists and we can't ever, like, what a great theory you guys have, that rather than saying it's wrong, what's causing this is something we can't measure and we'll never be able to measure it, but it's happening. We know. Trust us, bro.
Wait, so what do you count as a measurement?
We're back to this. Ideally, a measurement would be you can measure something's actual properties.
Gotcha. Do you have a non-circular definition?
No.
So a measurement is something that you can measure, like something with properties that you can measure.
Ooh, somebody says Gutstick Gibbons wants to talk to me. Please let her know I'm ready to debate her whenever she would like. So
Gotcha. Wait, so do you want to try to reconcile? And I agree that you can like respond to comments,
Say it
but
again.
do you want to give an actual definition of measurement?
The one that comes to mind without Googling it is just being able to confirm something's size, weight, energy, temperature, some sort of standard by which you can measure its physical properties or its size, its whatever. Am I way off there?
So being able to confirm something's physical properties. Gotcha. So how would you confirm gravity's physical properties?
We don't know gravity's physical properties. It's a great mystery.
Okay,
in
well,
science.
how would you confirm like energy's physical properties?
Energy is, you can measure that on like a Hertz scale. You can measure it. You can measure the
electron?
energy. I don't know. I don't know that answer.
Well, you can't. What you can do is you can measure the electron's effect on things, right?
Okay.
But
Yeah, cool. So it looks like then,
mean,
unless you have a
electrons are real.
response to that, then it seems like we would agree that we can, like a valid form of measurement is to measure the effect of something.
If you want to say dark energy is a thing because the expanding universe is accelerating and therefore we know it's a thing, that's fine. You're welcome to believe that. It's just not science.
Wait. So, and I agree. So you can say it's not science after you have literally no critique and try to just affirm your conclusion. But do you want to respond to the critique?
You are asking me
Wait,
to show
Vor,
you how
calm
to
down,
measure
Vor.
something
Calm
that is
down,
made
Vor.
up.
Calm
Okay,
down,
I'm
Vor.
calm. All right.
Yep. Yeah. So what we just discovered now is that you had no answer when Blitz asked you, well, how would you measure an electron? You have to measure the effects of an electron, which means that there's some things that can only be measured via their effects. So in the same way, we can only measure dark energy by measuring the effects of dark energy. Do you have a critique of any of that?
I cannot say your measurement that the expanding universe of that means it is dark energy. The only refutation I can say is that it could be something else that's causing this, and we don't know because we can't actually figure out what this thing is because it's non-observable. So if you want to call it dark energy, fine. If you want to call it the flying spaghetti monster, fine. If you want to call it God, fine. It's immeasurable, but something is causing space-time or the universe to expand at an accelerate its expansion. So something is doing that. You call it dark energy. You can call it whatever you want to.
Yeah,
right.
But then
This is actually like, sorry, Ian.
no, go
This is
for it.
actually like a super good point. Dark energy isn't referring to one specific thing, but the point is, and this is like a general feature when we like, this is why I'm always very impressed by physicists. Not to toot my own horn because I don't do this, but other physicists do this, where you have some data and you have no idea what to model it by. But what you can do is you can sort of talk about things in a model agnostic way. So, and I actually made a video on this like 3 weeks ago. So the idea is that, okay, we have no idea what dark energy is. Maybe it's some sort of like this field that we've never measured, or maybe it's a fundamental property of the universe, or maybe it's some particle that we haven't detected, or maybe it's a flying spaghetti monster. Regardless of what it is, we can quantify how much of an effect it has on things. Regardless of what's causing the acceleration, we can quantify how much acceleration it has. And in particular, we can actually quantify what the effective energy it would have if it were, like if you were to kind of convert that effect to energy. We can do that. And that's all that's being said. The point is that effective energy has now been, like there's new data from a few months ago that suggests that effective energy is decreasing. That's all. We don't know what it is. It could be a flying spaghetti monster. Who knows? The point is that whatever it is, it's decreasing.
Yep. Yeah, and this just gets into like a field of science. So we have two different theories that we could posit. We could posit that we have dark energy that is just like getting like less effective, less strong over time, or we could posit like a flying spaghetti monster freely choosing to get less effective over time. All else equal, if both of these things explain the phenomena, why would we ever pick the one that's like more complicated, the one with a mind, when we could just pick the phenomena itself?
In no way, Ian, have you yet to posit in any sense why something outside of this reality, having created this reality, is more complicated. I've been explaining how complicated this worldview is already. We've talked about many worlds and the universe not being locally real and hidden variables and now random reversals of entropy and things. At no point, and I know you're going to get into the omnis, which I can't wait to take you to task on that. At no point have you said why your belief system is more believable than something outside of space and time creating this universe. You haven't even tried.
Yes, I have. I sure have. Yeah. So this just comes back to the Bad Monday Fairy. So why would you reject the Bad Monday Fairy hypothesis?
We're going to go back to that.
Yeah. So you have 10 bad Mondays in a row.
Okay, that's
and you
fine.
could,
Yes,
if
yes,
it
yes,
could
yes.
just be attributed to luck, why would you want to attribute it to a Bad Monday Fairy?
But what you're not understanding here, Ian, is you're the one who believes in the Bad Monday Fairy, not me.
I don't. Wait.
Yes, you do.
Wait,
Yes, you do.
Bro,
It's materialism.
VOR.
It is.
You can try. I agree. You can try to use rhetoric to get out of this question.
I'm not
but
using
I'll
rhetoric to
just
get out of the question.
I'll pose this very simply
Okay.
to you. So if you have 10 bad Mondays in a row, and it could be attributable to luck, but your friend comes along and says, "Well, that's just the Bad Monday Fairy following you around." Which explanation are you likely to believe, that it happened through luck via nothing but natural processes? Or that it happened through a supernatural process?
The reason that I said it was a terrible example from the beginning is
Wait. I want
it's
an
a
answer to the
non-sequitur.
answer to the question. I want an answer to the question first. Which one would you prefer?
Well, I clearly don't believe in a Bad Monday Fairy.
Yeah, so
It's a
why would you
ridiculous idea.
believe in the I agree. And so what specific property are you going to identify about the Bad Monday Fairy that makes it implausible, because it's a perfect fit for the data?
Why is it? I don't understand why something having created the universe is. You can even attribute this to the Bad Monday Fairy.
Wait, I'm not saying that the creator of the universe is the Bad Monday Fairy. We're just talking about the Bad Monday Fairy right now. Like, put God in like a compartment in your head and put that compartment aside.
Okay,
just the Bad Monday
actually
Fairy.
let's answer your
Yeah,
question
yeah,
correctly.
yeah. So
Okay,
so which?
let's answer your question correctly.
Yep. So what property do you not like about the Bad Monday Fairy that would cause you to believe, presumably, that luck is the cause?
Because in your Bad Monday Fairy analogy, you're talking about very simple, very explainable. You could use chaos theory, different things to explain why these bad things are happening. You're not using something similar to what is a more reasonable explanation for how the universe got here. You're using,
Yes, exactly. Yes, it is. Well, no, it's because there's a natural explanation. You can rely on natural explanations, which means there is no need for a supernatural explanation. It's
You
that
have not.
simple. You should prefer, if you
No.
can explain things naturally, then there's no reason to posit a supernatural explanation. It's just that simple.
Do you think you've used natural explanations
Yes.
to? Okay, so a
Entirely.
natural. So dark energy is a natural thing.
Yeah, so because every natural just means that being in like conforming to the laws of physics. That's all natural means.
Okay, and a universe always existing in a reality where we have beginnings and endings. You think a universe existing eternally is a natural thing? You think that works naturally based on our
Not
understanding of the laws of
eternal. So
physics?
if eternally means timeless, then no. But if it like goes infinitely back into the past, yes, that seems to be what the science is indicating. Yeah.
Okay, and then the random reversal. How do you account for the random reversals of entropy, where this universe collapses on itself and then expands, it explodes again?
Oh, just based on like a quantum state that we don't currently have the physics to explain yet. But just because we don't have the science to explain something,
Whoa,
that doesn't
whoa.
mean that we're not
Don't
going to
gloss
be able
over
to
what you just
explain
said.
that.
Right, right.
Yes,
So your
wait.
faith,
I was elaborating on it. Wait, hold on. Just because we don't have the science to explain it yet does not mean that we should rely on supernatural explanations. A great example of this is Greek mythology. They invented all these gods like Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, Hermes, whatever, because they couldn't explain basic phenomena like the sun rising or the tides or any of that. So they were like, well, I guess it was God. Science is a process, not a product. The fact that we learn more things about the universe means that we need to wait before we have like specific judgments. And I would assume, just based on the trajectory of history, that there is very likely going to be a natural explanation that comes out as physics gets more and more advanced. That the gaps in our knowledge do not need to be explained by God and can just be explained by physics.
right? Very likely, you say, and we will find the answer. So what you're actually saying, let me decode this for your viewers, is we do not have a natural explanation currently, but
Currently.
Ian believes that there will be a natural explanation.
Yeah, as the Greeks didn't have a natural explanation for why the sun rose or why there were tides, so they just made up these gods. But then eventually they got their natural explanation.
Right, but do you understand that you're saying that I'm invoking a supernatural explanation? You're invoking a natural explanation when you don't have the natural explanation.
Yeah, wait, so there's a huge difference in our explanations though, because your explanation is just that God poofed everything into existence,
No, I've
that
never said
God
poofed.
uses magic. Okay.
Straw man.
You can so
Not
you can
magic.
use all right, is it a supernatural force? So what natural mechanism does it use if it's not magic?
Is the creation of Minecraft, did Marcus Persson poof Minecraft into existence? Did he use
No, but
magic?
he used a natural process. He used programming, a natural process. But you would be
Right.
appealing to supernatural processes, which we do not know if they
Not
exist at all.
necessarily. I mean, we could
So
call it
sure, wait. So
supernatural because we don't have an
do you
understanding
think
yet.
God is natural or supernatural?
Depends on how you define supernatural. He's
Oh,
out.
so just being outside of the laws of physics.
Yeah, he created laws of physics. So yes, he's outside
Gotcha.
of them.
Then this is magic.
It's not magic.
It is magic. Yeah,
Is
that's
D-
what
it-
it's.
well,
It's
no.
supernatural. Supernatural things are magic. Yes.
Is DNA magic?
No, but DNA is natural.
Is DNA information?
DNA is not information until you have a mind to actually view the DNA.
Interesting. I mean, I disagree with that, but that's an interesting way to look at this. So the idea that life is a product of information isn't magic. It's information, and this is
But
one
it's a natural
example that we have.
process, and we have large chunks of abiogenesis to explain
don't.
every single.
We don't-
Yes,
we
we
don't
do.
have abiogenesis.
Yes, we do. Wait, so
Oh
the
my
idea
God,
that
okay.
God just like abracadabra poofed everything into existence has no evidence for it, whereas we have the three major chunks of abiogenesis down pat. And
No, you
in
don't.
20, yes, we do. Yeah, it
That is embarrassing that you're saying you have abiogenesis down
Wait,
pat.
and I agree. You can say no, you don't before I've even said my evidence.
Okay.
But let's talk about it. Wait, so
Okay,
if
go
you
ahead.
say no, I don't, you must know something. Could you tell me what the three parts of abiogenesis even are?
Let me see here. We have the conditions, which would be some sort of hydrothermal vent that has
No,
similar
it's like three
molecular parts.
characteristics that needed to develop. What are the three core properties that developed via abiogenesis?
Three core properties. Well, you need obviously we need the molecular composition. So
Nope, that's not one of
deoxynucleic
them.
acid.
Wait, so I'm not sure why you're saying. Oh wait,
I didn't
wait.
know this shit. Just tell him.
Yeah, go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, that's fine. So you need three things. You need self-replication. Wait, who's? Whoa, no way. The scientific snitch. That's awesome. So you need three things for abiogenesis. You need self-replication. You need metabolism, and you need segregation from your outside environment. We have the three components of all of these things. We have self-replication that we can like identify natural mechanisms for how this came about. We have metabolism for how things have transfers of energy, and then both of these entail the segregation of a system. We have mechanisms for all of these, whereas you have explanations for none of these.
You're kidding me. That's what you just said.
Yeah, you have.
You are
Well, so
kid-
your
So wait, no, you're
explanation is that
saying-
God just like decided to make everything, like poofed everything into existence.
Wow.
Which we have no evidence that supernatural phenomena exist. Whereas
this-
we have evidence that all three of these mechanisms, these natural mechanisms, do exist.
Does what you just said work on people? Is it just because they maybe don't think they can question you? All
And
you
I
described,
agree. You
Ian,
can. I agree. You can like complain, and you can say, well, does this only work because people don't think they can question you? But what you can't do is give a critique. Wait,
you just
scientific
described
snitch. It's
three
nice to meet you,
things.
but
You just described three things that we know how DNA works. There's nothing about how it began to be.
Excuse
You
me,
just
I
said how it
actually
works.
have an explanation for that. Just FYI, we have evidence that RNA came before DNA as its precursor, and we also have evidence that mitochondria were actually living organisms, which ended up getting becoming symbiotically, I guess, absorbed by a cell which became our cells, which is why we have mitochondria, and also which is why mitochondrial DNA is completely different from genomic DNA. So no, we do have evidence of that. Just
Can you tell me what the
wanted to-
evidence is of the
fact that
what you said?
the fact that the organism that came before cells, or the fact that mitochondria, we've literally made experiments where mitochondria
experiments.
become
Okay.
symbiotically, I guess, I'm sorry, I'm not very great with English if I'm not like looking at like a freaking whatever dictionary. Anyways, we
so
have
you're-
evidence that mitochondria was a separate organism.
Okay, is
because
it evidence or
has different
fact?
DNA.
Because you said fact, and I was waiting to hear what kind. Because I know how this works.
So
we don't have,
in science, there is no such thing as facts because we don't put ourselves above everything else.
Okay,
we
so
always
what-
acknowledge there's new evidence that comes about, but it is a very well supported theory. And considering the fact that mitochondria have been shown, I'm pretty sure I can look it up right now, but there are organisms that are exactly like mitochondria.
Yeah, Vor, can I ask you? And Scientific Snitch. I don't know if you know this, but when you're off the app, you can go Google that. But like we can't hear you when you're off the app, but you're more than welcome to like go Google it.
Yeah, I'll go do that.
Yep. So, Vor, I'd ask you. So you're complaining about how like abiogenesis hasn't yet been made in a lab yet. So I'd ask you, how many universes has God made in labs?
How many universes God made in labs?
Yeah.
How could I answer that? I don't know how many universes.
Well,
God's
yeah,
created.
the answer is like very straightforward. It's 0. So if this is the critique of
What?
our view,
Why
so
is that answer 0?
that because God's made 0, we have no known universes that God has made. God's never
Okay,
come down
I'm
here
trying
and
to
like made a
follow your
universe in our
argument here.
lab, whereas we have natural
in our
explanations and we're
lab.
piecing it
Okay.
together.
Right. In our
Yeah.
scientific lab, great. Yeah. So we both have belief systems. Perfect. Yeah, we both believe.
Well,
something.
no. But it's the difference is going to be an evidentiary difference. Whereas we have the mechanism by which God created the world, we have never observed before. Whereas the mechanism by which life came from non-life, we are currently observing and working to create.
No, you don't. You don't have evidence where life.
Yes,
came
we
from
wait. Do you
non-life,
want a
Ian.
paper showing like
Sure.
self-replication? Do you want
Right.
self-replication happening in nature?
Self-replicate-
Do you want the evidence
Yeah.
that metabolism happens in nature? Do you want the evidence that segregation of individual systems happens in nature?
No,
Like which
I
paper
want
do you
the evidence
want?
that life comes from non-life. I
Yes,
want that
wait.
evidence.
So which you say that we have no evidence for the mechanisms. So what mechanism do you reject and what evidence do you want? Because I can send you papers on all 3 of them.
Ian, you're talking about physical properties of existing self-replicating molecules. You're not showing how this came to be.
Yes.
I can't believe you think that you're showing evidence. This is how it works.
and I agree. You can grandstand as if I'm not showing evidence right now. But
You're not showing evidence. I'm not
yes,
grandstanding.
yeah, and I agree.
Okay,
you
show
can
me
you
the
can
evidence
reclaim
that life
you can
came from
repeat your
non-life.
claim. Yes, I would love to do that. I would love to
ahead.
do that. So do you want like the paper saying that there's like
I want
the
you to-
emergence of these natural mechanisms?
Yeah, go ahead. Show me the paper of abiogenesis where science validated that life came from non-life.
Oh well, yeah. It's just that the existence of self-replication, that self-replicating molecules are capable of arising on their own.
Okay, let's see that paper.
Yep. Yeah. Let's do it. So, it's the God folder, and it's studies that make Christ cry. Perfect. Okay. So,
Is that actually the title?
yeah,
No,
yeah, that's
that's
actually
his
the title.
folder.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's the title of the folder, or that's the title of the file that I have like certain studies in. So the name of the study, if you want to write it down, is Spontaneous Emergence of Self-Replicating Molecules Containing Nucleobases and Amino Acids.
Okay, I can't write all that down, but go ahead.
I can say it again. Yeah, so spontaneous emergence of self-replicating
Hold on.
molecules.
Well, let me just
containing-
Google. I got a computer here, so give me a second
Yep.
to get it loaded up.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. Spontaneous.
Emergence of self-replicating molecules containing nucleobases and amino acids.
Okay.
Yep.
So do you want to read this together? The conditions that led to the formation of the first organisms and the ways that life originates from a lifeless chemical soup are poorly understood. The recent hypothesis of RNA peptide coevolution suggests that the current close relationship between amino acids and nucleobases may well have extended to the origin of life. How you feeling about this so far, Ian?
Yeah, feeling great. I'm feeling great about this. Finish the abstract.
Okay, we now show how the interplay between these compound classes can give rise to new self-replicating molecules using a dynamic combinatorial approach. We report 2 strategies for the fabrication of chimeric amino acid nucleobase self-replicating macrocycles capable of exponential growth. The first one relies on mixing nucleobase and peptide-based building blocks, where the litigation of these two give rise to highly specific chimeric ring structures. The second one starts from the peptide nucleic acid PNA building blocks, in which nucleobases are already linked to amino acids from the start. While previously reported nucleoacid-based self-replicating systems rely on presynthesis or short oligonucleotide sequences, self-replication in the present system start from units containing only a single nucleobase. Self-replication is accompanied by self-assembly, spontaneously giving rise to an ordered one-dimensional arrangement of nucleobase nanostructures.
Yep.
Okay, so, and you've read this, right?
Yes, I have. That's
so
correct.
This is much better for someone like a James Tour, a synthetic biologist, to actually go through. But the first thing I see here is they're taking 2 existing functional things, your peptide and nucleobase, and they
Both of which emerged on their own in the conditions at which life emerged. They were peptides because they were like proteins in the soup. Yeah.
Wait, you said that like there was.
There was. That's correct.
What, you think they have the soup, Ian?
No, well, I think that they have like strong evidence for what the composition of the soup would be.
What's wrong? That's not true.
Okay, yeah, we can just look this up. So, proteins.
I mean, what is known is that we know that these things like amino acids are plentiful in our universe, like just on their own, they just exist.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
So
by
that's
the way,
not
I
surprising,
found.
right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Came back. I found the study that was finding that they found. They basically engineered an endosymbiotic relationship between archaeobacteria or alpha proteobacteria and another cell to kind of prove the fact that mitochondrial evolution, there is evidence behind it that we can reproduce. So if you want, I can link those studies for you.
Sure, yeah. Either of you guys, Blitz and Ian, do you see the problem with what she just said? You don't see it?
I was reading Discord, my bad.
The word is engineered. They engineered. The conscious
Wait, but
minds.
that was your critique, right? That it can't be reproduced in like the lab, or
Yeah,
No,
we just
no.
reproduced the same thing.
Look, if humans engineer life, that is not evidence that life engineered itself. I
no,
understand
it
in your
didn't engineer
scientific
itself.
idea-
It emerged via natural processes.
No,
That's
no.
what we're trying to
She
get you to
said that
understand.
her
Yeah,
proof from
no.
the her proof. She said facts. The word is facts.
Endosymbiotic relationship. Do you know what that means?
Endosymbiotic. Obviously, they're symbiotic. I'm not sure what endo is.
Do you know what
internal.
symbiotic relationship means?
Yeah, of course, symbiotic. Yeah, mutually beneficial, codependent.
Yes, so one bacteria is codependent on another one, meaning if you give one bacteria to the other bacteria or the other cell, it becomes a part of it.
Okay, did you want to read that again? The scientists engineered?
So if you put 2 bacteria in the same space and they come together and kiss and
That's
turn
not what
into
it
one
says.
organism.
That's not what it says. Don't misrepresent the science. They said they engineered it. The scientists
That's
engineered
the-
it.
Term.
Would you think they were like doing
the
surgery on like a bacteria and like implanting like another bacteria
No.
inside of it? Like, is that
Probably.
VOR? Is that
I
what
mean,
you think?
engineered
You
is a
think
pretty
you think that
strong
they were
word.
doing that? You think they have like their little like scalpel that
Okay,
they have like
why
their
don't we- do you
tweezers?
wanna
Like
pull up the
that's
paper?
absurd.
Let's do it, actually. What's the name of the paper, scientific friend that just joined? What's the name of the paper?
The name.
Almost guarantee you it's exactly what they did, Ian. And when they do, your smug answer is going to look really funny.
Yeah,
when
they got
actually
their like little scalpel. I just think that this is
They
like you not
probably used a
understanding
gene
like
gun.
just how big a
Ooh,
bacteria is.
Let's see if it's me not understanding or if it's you not understanding. Ian, go ahead. What's the name of the paper? We'll actually read what they did.
Well, but regardless of what it says, I haven't pulled it up. But regardless of what it says, the point is that humans presumably did something entirely
Engineered.
within the laws of physics. Yeah,
Yes.
engineered, whatever you want to call it. It's entirely within the laws of physics, right? So the point is that there is some natural process. Maybe it involved like a needle going somewhere, but the point is it was entirely natural. Like there was like atoms doing atomic things that led to this to happen, right?
Doing atomic things.
So the PMID is 303733839.
I can't do it that way, unfortunately. I don't have
If you
academic
just-
access.
If you just Google PMID 303733839, you will see the abstract.
PMID 303879.
No, 303733839.
303. Say that one more time. I'm sorry. I have dyslexia. I'm sorry. 303.
Let me just go back to where I found it.
Sorry.
Sorry. Oh, good. Where are you? I just 303-738-39.
I hope this pulls up this paper. PMID, Engineering Yeast Embryo Embryons. Is this one? Okay. The title of the paper is Engineering Yeast, and so that's a good start. It has been hypothesized that a mitochondrial evolved from a bacterial ancestor that initially became established in an archaeal host cell as an endosymbiont. Here we model the first stage of mitochondrial evolution by engineering endosymbiont between these two. So this is the same one. Let's see how they did it here. Figures, see how we get it cited by, oh no, I'm not going to be able to access this.
They tell you the methods in the abstract.
Okay, I'll read it, continuing then. Let's see here. We model the first stages, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is a fungus expressing E. coli provided ATP respiration deficient yeast mutant and enabled the growth of yeast E. coli chimera on a non-fermentable carbon source. In a reciprocal fashion, yeast provided thiamine to endosymbiotic E. coli, thiamine oxtroph. Expression of several snare-like proteins in E. coli was also required, likely to block lysomal degradation of intracellular bacteria. That's very important.
Oh, actually, I just found out that there's no paywall. If you go to the full text links, you can just click on the PMC link and it'll take you to a free paper.
Sorry, everybody.
Look at
I
that.
know that this. Thank you for helping us find this. I know this isn't super boring or super exciting for everybody, but it's important to go down into the granular level here. Results. Did you find the methods on this? Here we go. Introduction of engineered E. coli cells into yeast. Next, we optimize the protocol for introducing bacteria into yeast cells. Previously, bacterial cells were fused with yeast to clone whole bacteria genomes in yeast. Since we wanted to retain intact live bacteria within yeast cells, we decided to use an alternative protocol that was previously developed for introduction of mitochondria into yeast by polyethylene glycol-induced fusion. Ian?
Wait, so,
literally-
but what does that mean? Does this
It
happen
means
on
that
its
your
own?
joke was
Is
totally
this
wrong.
wait, VOR? No, it doesn't. And I agree. So I agree that you can like say that means that my joke was like totally actually the case. But is this a process that happens on its own, or is this only a process that could happen via humans?
Okay, now you're
So
shifting
it's a
goalposts.
process that
No,
can
it's-
happen on its own.
Yeah,
Just-
perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. So my
It's
specific.
not. So if I could just interject quickly, it's not as though we are ripping apart the cell, putting it in there specifically. We are inducing chemical reactions and biological reactions, which result in that. So using like polyethylene glycol, or like, for example, a very simple example would be cell transfections using lipofectamine, which is basically just taking something that has a similar chemical and biological nature to like a cell wall, having it fused together with the cell wall, which is something that happens every time in nature. Like literally every time you're thinking in your brain and neurotransmitters are being transported from one cell to another, that synapse, the little vesicles, they're encapsulated in fats or phospholipids, which allow that micelle or they allow the vesicle to go into the other cell. So it's not necessarily an unnatural reaction. We're not forcing it in there. We're using what we know about science to kind of coax it over and induce the reaction so we can see it for ourselves under the microscope.
Yeah, coaxed is a good word. What do you guys want to cover here? They introduced this. It looks like
No, I agree. You can like pick like random terms and read them out, but do you actually want to engage with what was just said?
it's not random terms. It's
It
specifically.
is. You're saying engineered, but the fact of the matter is
She
that this
said
is a
engineered.
100%
engineered.
natural process.
Oh,
Yes,
it's not, Ian. You're
it is
so
a
lost in this conversation,
100% natural process.
is
You were
not-
just
it's
not,
literally
or you
engineered
are
by the
just not
scientists.
tracking. Or you're just not
So,
tracking.
That's not the-
coaxing something naturally is very different from surgically putting something in. Like, for example, if I were to put something into a mouse, like inject them with like an unnatural substance that, let's say, induces like if I were to inject heparin or something, like the effect of heparin on the mouse would technically be natural because it's all biological processes, but me injecting heparin in is the unnatural part. But that doesn't take away the fact that the anticoagulant factor is still a natural process.
So
Like
what do
you don't make drugs from, you can't make a drug from something that's not going to react naturally.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
It does. So we got here because Ian said there was evidence of abiogenesis. The paper that was
Wait, what the fuck is going on in the back?
It's a baby, dude. If you've had a baby, you'll understand. Okay.
Oh,
so,
yeah, my bad.
Okay,
couldn't hear.
the idea here is that Ian posited that science has cracked the code of abiogenesis, which they have not. They're very far away from this.
So
had
I
data
agree you can
for
like
it.
misrepresent my position, but my position is very clearly is that we have large understandings of the major mechanisms of abiogenesis.
Which I
Whereas we
responded
have
to
no
the
understanding of
three-
the mechanism of God creating the universe.
The three pieces of evidence that you provided are innate properties of existing self-replicating molecules. We don't have self-replicating molecules
Yes.
arising spontaneously.
Wait, yes, we do.
No,
That's
we
what the
don't.
paper says. That's
Yes,
what it does.
we do.
Are you talking about the paper that we're reading right now, where the scientists engineered this? Is that what we're talking about?
Wait, no, not this one. That's like the mitochondria. That's like just how two things like came together.
That's just how mitochondrial evolution came. Like that's the evidence for mitochondrial evolution.
No,
The
it's
evidence for self-replicating molecules would be RNA to DNA to self-replicating molecule.
So this is the paper that Ian talked about: spontaneous emergence of self-replicating molecules containing nucleobases and amino acids.
Indeed.
Okay, and so we're back to this now, and we read the abstract, which said, just read this again really quickly, and then we can look at the methodology. The
We
conditions
already
led-
read it once. Reading it again isn't going to help you.
Okay, so what
but
do you
go
want to
for
read
it.
in here? What
Well,
part of
yeah,
this do you wanna
just
read?
that it gives a mechanism by which this thing arises naturally.
Do you want to read the whole paper?
I
don't know.
Do you think asking questions like, "Do you want to read the whole paper?" is going to help your
Okay,
position?
let's hear.
Like,
Well, let's
you
see
can.
what they did, because you're
Yeah,
saying this
you're
is
more than welcome to read it.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to understand it.
I'll take my. That's possible. I'll take my bias, or my stance rather, about this before we read this paper that is going to lose almost everybody. But I'm absolutely happy to read this. Much smarter individuals than me have been having this discussion for a very long time. Clearly, most people in here have seen the debate between Professor Dave Farina and James Tour and Lee Cronin. This is a debate that hasn't been settled. Guys like Lee Cronin, who has been an origin of life for a long time, is moving away from standard origin of life to assembly theory, which is the paper he just wrote. In my understanding, they've gotten nowhere close to actually validating abiogenesis. This paper from
That's not true.
2020, which I'm happy to read through, and I think it's going to confirm what I believe in this, is that you have scientists setting up what they know need to be the necessary molecules, sterilizing them, arranging them that they need to, fusing them together, introducing them, and getting something like early life, which would, in my opinion, validate that you need an intelligence to take existing constituent parts in ideal conditions.
Yeah. Then
and if
go
you
through the
do
paper
so,
and
you
find
get
it. We'll
something.
wait. Go through the paper and find it.
Okay,
Find
everybody's okay with this.
the evidence that the paper says what you say it says.
Okay, establishing possible pathways through which life can emerge from inanimate matter is one of the grand challenges in today's science. Agreed?
That's those are what the words say. Yeah.
Okay. In addressing this challenge, the functional and structural characteristics of present-day life provide important guidance. At the same time, the overwhelming complexity of evolved life makes it challenging to extract its essence and identify pathways for its emergence. Right? So you understand this is a problem, and this is what the scientists are saying.
Yes, yeah, this is it's do you understand that this is the introduction section and they're going to say like, yeah, and then there's this research that we did.
Okay.
So they're setting up the problem and then the research is like giving the solution to the problem.
Recently, a systems, and I will say this going into it, if science has proven abiogenesis, as Ian is claiming, or at least has a very good case for it, then I want to make sure I accurately represent the science here. So we're going to read this paper. I wish I could share my screen and read this with you guys. Does the chat want that? Do they want to see the paper as I read it?
No,
Do
just
they
read
care?
the paper. Yeah,
Okay.
I think you're stalling for time.
Recently, a systems chemistry toward the challenge of the origin and synthesis of life is.
It's very long. He's not going to find anything. I think it's funny. I think it's gonna be funny, and I'll drop my viewers down to like just 3 people. It'll just be the 3 of us in this live,
Perfect.
watching VOR find nothing and then give up.
If we read
TR,
this
thanks so much
paper-
for the sent subscription. I appreciate it. WTR in the comment section.
Everybody
keep
can
reading.
watch my thought process. If we
Yeah.
read this and this is 100% to everybody in this chat. If we read this and science has determined that abiogenesis happened, they have some sort of data for this.
Wait.
I will no longer
Don't
say that.
stop grandstanding. Just read it.
What I want to clarify my stance.
That's
if I'm
fine.
wrong, I will reverse my thinking. I never want to misrepresent the science. Here we go.
That's good. Go for it.
So we go to the next page. Well, hold on, or the next paragraph. Hold on a second. I got to open up something. Recently, systems chemistry toward the challenges of the origin and synthesis of life is gaining popularity. The facts that many different types of molecules coexist at the time of life's origin, and the same applies to present-day life, warrants an explanation of what may emerge upon allowing different compound classes to interact. For example, the notion of peptides and nucleic acids cooperating during the early stages of emergence of life is becoming increasingly popular, and nucleobase peptide chimeras show unique self-assembly behavior and can give rise to remarkably complex foldmers. Key in the transition of chemistry into biology is the acquisition of function. The core functional characteristics of life are its ability to replicate, to metabolize, and to be spatially segregated from its environment. Where life requires the functional integration of all of these characteristics, most research efforts still focus on one of these aspects in isolation. Autocatalysis, which I remember Farina and Tu were talking about this, the ability of systems, molecules, metabolic networks, or compartments to make copies of themselves is central to all evolutionary scenarios. Okay, autocatalysis, that makes sense. Systems where autocatalysis is accompanied by information transfer and hereditary are said to be self-replicating. Synthetic systems of self-replicators have been pioneered by Don whoever using short DNA strands. Subsequently, self-replicating molecules have been developed that feature most of their other important current biopolymers, RNA and peptides, as well as completely synthetic molecules. Okay, major issue.
Yes, thanks so much for the extended subscription. I appreciate that. Huge W in the comment section.
In replicator chemistry is the tendency of self-inhibition through replicator duplex formation. This causes many replicators to exhibit only parabolic growth, whereas exponential growth for most scenarios for Darwinian evolution. Another problem is replicator chemistry and the complexity of the structure associated with most self-replicators. Should we go to like the methodology? How do we get somewhere?
Yeah, go to, you can read whatever you want. I'm just waiting for you to, because you said that you think that this paper is going to be them like Frankensteining things together rather than describing a natural mechanism that actually exists. So, I want you to go to the part where they're like Frankensteining things together.
Okay, so yeah, my stance is that the scientists are definitely manipulating, engineering, introducing this to get the reaction. That is my stance.
Yep,
okay.
let's see.
Let's go down a little bit. A system's approach to the emergence of self-replicating molecules where different compound classes coexist has therefore, maybe we can go down to the method here. Results in discussion. We have constructed molecular networks based on thiol, which is disulfide chemistry. 3 families of relatively simple diethyl building blocks were prepared featuring peptides.
Also, I would like to mention something quickly. Sorry, I'm like kind of on a walk right now, but something that humans do that is more difficult for us to reproduce, even though we're using natural mechanisms, doesn't make it any less natural.
Oh, well, the argument that, or the discussion that Ian and I are having currently is that this was proven or shown to be viable. I'm trying to flip my camera around. Based on, how do I do that? Was that going to flip? Okay, here we go. Based on this kind of happening organically or naturally. And I'm saying that the scientists certainly, what did you say, Frankenstein? They used Frankenstein tactics.
They like Frankenstein this together. Yeah, I just want to see that.
Have you read the paper, Ian?
Yeah, I sure have, yeah.
Okay, so how do you feel about the beginning of this, what I said here?
Well, I feel like you haven't found any evidence that you set out to show that they're like Frankensteining things together. I'm waiting for you to show that they've like Frankenstein things together.
First, results in discussion. Here's the paper if anybody wants to see it. We have constructed molecular networks based on thiol disulfide.
Yeah. So, and
chemistry.
which of these doesn't occur naturally?
So just want to like also add in, like, a very good example, I just thought of this. If humans were to culture cancer cells, it is a lot harder for us to keep those cancer cells alive than if they were just alive in our bodies.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is using natural processes to replicate a reaction doesn't mean it's any less natural.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, prove to me where these things don't just occur in nature.
Well, what I would say initially to that is if it does happen in nature and you want to assume, therefore, it did happen, you can do that. It's just an inference, and I would even say not science. It's a
Oh,
belief
sure,
system.
that's fine. So do you want the evidence that these things occur in nature?
Yeah, that's what, from the beginning of this, the metric has been this naturally occurs. And I mean, so I can tell you this without any question. I'll bet you any amount of money. Science has never observed life coming from non-life. This has not been observed. If you want to assume,
well, that's just because after the protocells formed and after the bacteria itself formed, it then started to consume all of like the proteins and like the other like building blocks of life around it, because so these building blocks couldn't come together again because the cells would just eat anything that made it to even the protocell stage, and also they would also eat all the materials that protocells are made out of in the first place.
yes, exactly like the dark energy. You cannot falsify your belief. It's a really
you
strong
totally
way
can
to do
because
science.
wait. So you totally can because you can just observe bacteria doing this. It's actually really simple to falsify it. You could falsify this very easily by just finding examples of these things existing with bacteria not eating them.
So
It's just that simple.
Okay,
so
it's not that
clearly
simple.
it is falsifiable,
No, I
and your
actually
claim
wanna just
that it's not
tell me
falsifiable
if
is
I'm
just based
misrepresenting
on
what
nothing.
you just said. Of course, we can't see it because it was created and then it was eaten by something, so we're never going to see it. We know this. And I say, okay, that's not good science. You say, well, yes, it is because we see bacteria eat stuff all the time.
Yeah, this is just like a tracking failure at the fundamental level. So let me break this down like once more. So the reason why we don't see this occurring again is because the bacteria and the protocells have become the predators. They now consume the things that first made them up in the first place because this is their food source. If anything made it to the protocell stage, it would just get eaten by a full-blown bacteria, just because it's a like rich, full of nutrients source of all the things that bacteria want. So yeah, and that's an observable fact that things that like that these basic building blocks are just consumed.
So if I misrepresented your stance here, which I believe has changed as we've been talking about this, would you then say that what has happened with abiogenesis is scientists have Frankenstein cobbled together, which is what this paper is saying, something that we believe happened, that the evidence has been destroyed and we can never confirm?
No, we still see the evidence ongoing.
We
Why is that not
use
representing
natural
what you just said?
reactions to provide proof that a natural reaction occurred.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you're not even willing to be intellectually honest enough, everybody in here, to say we see it happen, therefore we believe it happened, and it is a belief system, it's not science.
Okay, so let me just break it down for you. If you see a forest fire and you only see the aftermath, but then you make your own fire and then you set the forest on fire again, that doesn't mean a forest fire never
Oh my
occurred.
God, you guys are these things that you say are so frustrating to me. Thank you for the gifts, everybody.
So I agree. You can
We're
say
not
that these
talking
things
about
are so
Monday.
frustrating,
It
but you
is
have a
frustrating
critique of the
in-
analogy.
I do. The Mondays and the forest fire, talking about things that happen in everyday life. The origin of life, where life came from, where the universe came from, it's not a forest fire and it's not a bad Monday. It's a physics-defying, logic-defying, non-intuitive
assumption.
belief system based on materialism. We're not talking about a fire. We're talking about
How do you
how
know
the
it
universe
doesn't happen
began to
every
be.
day?
It can't. If you guys are welcome to believe whatever you want to. It's just not science.
No,
Yeah,
but how do
wait,
know
but
it
you
doesn't
said
happen every day.
you said it's like physics
Fine.
defying. That's an affirmative claim. Let's hear it. What's the evidence that it defies? What's the contradiction entailed in believing that this could happen?
Is a forest fire not a chemical reaction?
It is a chemical reaction.
Is metabolism not a chemical reaction?
It is a chemical reaction.
What do we do?
What do we mean? What do we do? Chemically react and metabolize?
Yeah, so we
Oh my God.
okay, so we demonstrate the mechanism in a lab setting to know that it works in nature as well. We can recreate these things in a lab setting to understand that they happen elsewhere in the universe under specific conditions.
Which are we talking about? Abiogenesis or the creation of the universe? We're talking about
The
abiogenesis. now.
abiogenesis, yes.
Okay. So in abiogenesis, I hate that we keep going back to this, because we know that we have self-replicating molecules, because we know that we, whatever, consume carbohydrates, whatever it is, these parameters that you talked about. You then say, we know that this happens, therefore it happened by chance at some point hundreds of millions of years ago.
Yeah, this is just going to be basic statistics, right? So if an event is unlikely but possible to happen under natural conditions, then the like the better scientific theory is going to be the one that posits fewer entities. So we don't need to posit any entities other than the existence of the laws of physics, insofar as abiogenesis happens under the laws of physics. It's the bad Monday fairy all over again. Why would we
Abiogenesis
posit the
doesn't
bad Monday
happen.
fairy when we
Please
have a
stop misrepresenting the
naturalistic
science here.
explanation for all of it?
The fact that cells work in a certain way, you can't use that and then say, therefore, it happened randomly by chance, and we can't prove it.
Oh no, but we
conflating two
but we
ideas.
can, because wait. So the
Wow.
conclusion of this is that even if we could create life from scratch in a lab, you still wouldn't accept that as proof of abiogenesis. That's the natural conclusion of your logic.
If there
I
was
have a
evidence,
question.
go ahead.
Perhaps a better analogy. And maybe this is a bad analogy, maybe you won't like it, VOR, but let's say that some guy who doesn't have a cell phone, lives in the middle of nowhere, doesn't talk to anybody. Let's say he walks into a convenience store one day, buys a single lottery ticket, walks back to his cabin, and then wins the lottery. Now, he doesn't tell this to anybody, but a check arrives in the mail for him, and he cashed the check, whatever. But nobody else besides him and the government knows. Now, I would say, well, it was announced that somebody won the lottery on TV. I can call up the government and be like, yeah, they sent it to somebody, but I don't actually know when it happened or who it happened to. I don't have that information, but I can still at least gather information based off of what happened afterwards that something may have happened. And then I can go play the lottery again, and I can see that that's possible that somebody else wins, which would lead me to think that somebody had won the previous week, even though I don't know who they are, and I've never talked to them. Like that, even though we can't actually verify that person won the lottery, because that happened in the past, and we can't go back and observe it. What we can do is we can see that winning the lottery is possible.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, and I appreciate it. But go ahead.
So wouldn't it be sufficient just to show that it's possible that this can happen in a lab, and then that would do it?
I think that this is just an opinion, obviously, but I think that using that analogy for why I found a random pile of rocks in my yard, it can happen. That is sufficient. If I came out and saw the pile of rocks had written out, whatever, Luke, blah, 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 this, that, Blitz, BFF forever, that scenario of what you're talking about becomes less tenable when it's something like information. It's something like
it's less probable, right?
It is. It becomes less probable the more organized it seems. Right.
The lottery is, it is wildly improbable for anyone to win the lottery, right?
That's not true.
It's actually more improbable that somebody wins the lottery.
Factually,
it's like one
true
in
that
several
somebody's going to
million,
win
right?
the lottery. Yeah, but it's an innate truth that somebody is going to win it. It's not. It's improbable that it's you, but somebody is going to win it.
But that's also not true for funny reasons. But the point I'm getting at is that the fact that this particular guy won the lottery is very, very rare, and so and it would also be very, very rare for for birds to drop rocks in your backyard that spell out something. But that doesn't mean it's impossible.
Yeah. So if I saw let's say that I look down and I see a group of ants and they've perfectly formed a picture of Winston Churchill. That's extremely improbable. But is that supernatural? No.
Okay. So I entirely concede that materialism is possible. Natural origination of the universe, natural origination of life, these are all possible. And I encourage your ability and freedom to believe it. I'm saying it's not science. I've been very clear about that. It's a belief system. It's a creation myth based on materialist presuppositions. I encourage you to be able to do it. Now, I don't think you should teach it to the children because I believe in the separation of church and state, but I totally support your willingness, your ability to believe that. And you know what? Science in 100 years may totally validate this. It may not. The evidence, in my opinion, is leaning in favor of it not validating. I think materialism is in deep trouble. But at this moment, it's got many commitments, and it is certainly a presuppositional situation, and it's not validated by data. You have to use thought experiments and analogies and hypotheticals. It's not science. That's my argument this whole time.
But this was a physical experiment. Also, you see, it's not science. So define science for us.
Science, the current definition is something like observing the natural world.
Well, science is a process, right? Like just going outside and like fucking looking at trees, that's not science. Science is specifically a thing that gathers evidence of specific phenomena and attempts to sort them into like larger systems of like theories and beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Which
You've
is
got
fine.
hypotheses in science. So if we generate a hypothesis for how life came to be, and then we prove it with a physical experiment, isn't that like, or at least we provide evidence, I should say, with a physical experiment, how is that not science?
You don't prove it. You don't prove it.
That's why I
the first
corrected
thing I would
myself.
say.
That's why I corrected myself and I said provide evidence.
Okay, and if Ian would have said, we have science in favor of the idea of abiogenesis, it's early, but at this point we see that there could be a mechanism, as opposed to saying science has proven this. Here's the paper.
I never said science proved this. I said that we have
What did you say?
we have very deep understandings of the three major chunks, the three core properties that must have existed in order for abiogenesis to have happened. We know how we have mechanisms by which self-replicating molecules can come into existence spontaneously on their own in nature. We have mechanisms by which like things with metabolism can come into existence on their own. We have mechanisms by which both of these things would be segregated systems. Those are the three core components of abiogenesis.
Okay, we're going to end up back in the paper if I'm not careful, but we don't have evidence that they spontaneously come into existence. We have evidence that if scientists procure the correct environments and
You
manipulate
have not
them,
proven that. You have not proven that.
I read that in that paragraph of that paper.
We use natural chemical reactions to create an experiment, a physical experiment, which demonstrated evidence. So no, we didn't just like poof it into air and surgically manipulate it. We used natural chemical reactions that already existed in nature.
Damn, debating while working out is crazy, but
It
like
is
huge
good.
W for you. Yeah.
I feel like what I visualize with what she's doing is when Sandra Bullock is in space in that movie Gravity, and she's like working on the space station. That's what I feel like because of the weird echo and stuff.
Bro, spoilers.
Oh,
That's funny. Yeah.
okay. What do you guys want? Do you want to do the abiogenesis thing? I would love to go into that God of the Bible isn't a
Yeah,
fungible
let's do
belief
it.
system.
I think there's verses that are just like completely irreconcilable. So there's I think it's Kings 3:4, or maybe it's like just Kings. It might be Kings 3:4. So Second Kings 3, I think, whatever one. Yeah, this one. Yeah, this is perfect. So in this story, God says, what the hell is the prophet's name? Could you give me just a second? I'm sorry, I'm like disorganized.
So it's Ahab, right? Who was the prophet? Was it? It had to be.
Ahab was the guy.
Elisha. Yeah, it's Prophet Elisha. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have Prophet Elisha
Elijah.
coming out, and so the Moab rebels. It says, "Hey, Israel, we're no longer a part of you," or whatever. And then Elisha comes and says, "Listen, God is on your side. You will reclaim this territory." They then go and don't reclaim the territory because the people in Moab sacrifice
Yeah,
the
Mesha,
king's
King Mesha.
son. Yeah, sacrifices the king's son, and then they lose. So either God is not all powerful and all knowing, in which case he lost, or God lied and did like a Bay of Pigs situation to the Israelites.
That's real easy. It's really
Yeah.
easy.
So what's the explanation?
I-
Or Elisha
super
lied.
excited to talk about this.
Yeah.
So, Ian, we've debated for over a year now, right? We've always had fairly respectable debate. I
Yeah, I
remember
think so.
our
I
first
think
one
so.
on the halting problem. Remember that
Yeah.
first debate we had? Okay, so I'm surprised that you're going to induce the omni attributes with me. Don't you know my theology a little better than that?
Yeah, I mean, I assume you have like a weird theology. So do you think that God just like lied here, or that he like just
No,
like
I think the
couldn't
omni
hack it? Or?
attributes aren't biblically based. And whenever we try to do something like define God's attributes with outside of the Bible, we end up in problems like what it's not your fault you're strawmanning, because it's actually the fault of Christians for perpetuating the omni attributes. but it's a straw man of who God of the Bible is. God can't be all loving if he hates 7 things. God can't be all knowing if he has to come down and say, I hear the outcry of the people, I came to check on it. So there's
Yeah,
the omni
that's
attributes
totally
aren't in the
fine.
Bible.
Yeah, no, they are in the Bible though, because
they're not.
omniscience, for example, there's a verse in John that says that God knows everything.
No,
For
that's not
all
what it says.
goodness, there's a verse.
No,
I can
it's
find
not
the
what it
verse, but it
says.
says
We
that.
can look it up. It's
Oh,
not,
yes, it
it's not
does.
biblically
Yes,
based.
that's exactly what it says. Yeah, I'll give you the verse.
ahead.
I think it's
Yeah, let's do that first.
going back to the God folder, and then
It's his knowing is unlimited,
forcing
basically, is what
Christian
it is.
concessions. Oh, okay.
Forcing
wait.
Christian concessions. You're better than this, Ian.
No, that's the name of the verse. Yeah.
Okay,
Or no, that's the name of
well,
not
you're
the
not
verse. That's
gonna-
the name of the document. Yeah.
You're not going to get me here. So, I mean, it's fun. I'm going to have this discussion. The verse I'm assuming you're referring to is that God's understanding is infinite, or the depth of his understanding is impossible to measure. He has unlimited understanding.
No,
not that he's all knowing.
1 John 3:19 through 20.
Which says,
Or no, it's just 1 John 3:20. So if our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts and he knows everything.
okay, let's look at this here. This is how we know we belong to the truth, and we know that our hearts at rest in peace in his presence. If our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts and he knows everything. Okay, in this, when he knows everything, what would you define this just based on the context of this discussion? Just based on what he just said.
Yeah, well, I think I take he knows everything to mean he knows everything, i.e. he knows all true propositions.
If our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts and he knows everything.
Yeah, just that God knows
the
everything.
hearts.
So I'm not sure. So if they meant God knows more, I'm not sure what they would say God knows everything.
They was he, and he was talking specifically about the heart. And it's okay to say that he knows everything from a standpoint of knowing everything that's going on in reality. Knowing everything specifically that's happening in reality at every second, which I would say God is defined as that, is fine. He knows our heart. He knows what's going on. He can see every player on the game screen at the same time.
Gotcha.
That
So then God knows
doesn't mean-
everything. Perfect.
That doesn't mean that he knew what we were going to do. It has nothing about the future or the past. It's specific about in this moment, he knows everything that's happening.
Oh, wait, so you don't think if God doesn't know the future, then how is Jesus able to tell I forget which one of his disciples it
Okay.
was, but like you will deny me 3 times. How was Jesus able to make predictions about the future?
It was Peter. It was
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah,
So
Peter.
maybe let me take a second to explain my theology, and then that way we don't have to keep running into these same questions because I assumed you knew them. So God exists. If God is real, he exists outside of the universe, space-time we would call it. God created time. He's not stuck in the time that we are in. There can be a separate time frame outside of this universe, but this time that we are in, God is not subject to it. He experiences it, but he created it. He's not stuck in it.
Wait,
God,
no, there's no reconciling this. So you think God knows everything about the present, but also God exists outside of time. If God exists outside of time, then he's capable of looking down at everything and he just knows the entire timeline.
right. He does know the timeline. Exactly.
Wait, but you said he doesn't know the future.
So he does know the future. He didn't know the future. That's an important qualifier.
So right now, does God know the future?
God knows how the story ends. Yes.
Okay, so then God knows everything.
You're using your own.
How can there be a didn't if there's no past or future?
How can there be?
Okay, I'll explain that. So here's my belief system. Imagine that God created this reality. It says in the Bible that a day is 1,000 years. God created this reality. According to the Bible, there's 7,500 years of human history from Adam till now. He could have watched how this thing unfolded, experienced it in 7.5 days, just based on the idea as 1,000 years as a day. In that scenario, God binge watched, you could say, how this reality turned out. So by the end of the first week, basically, he knew how the story was going to end. So both can be true. He didn't know what we were going to do, but he now knows what we did. Both can be true on this. And if I need to better elaborate it, I can.
Does he know what we're going to do before we do it?
He didn't know what we were going to do before we did it. But
Does
he
God
knows
know what I'm
we
going to
did
do for
because he's
like
outside of it.
in 5 minutes from now? Does God know what I'm
You're
going
not
to do?
understanding this. Okay, let me explain this again. If you recorded a football game, or a baseball game, basketball, who cares? You recorded it, you went to work, you said, nobody tell me what happens in the game. You're going to go home and you're going to watch that space-time continuum. You're going to fast forward through the commercials, whatever. On the way home, your wife texts you, somebody, oh, did you see what happened with the game, whoever won? And you're like, oh shit, that sucks. You come home, as you're watching this, you know what the result was going to be. God isn't stuck in the real-time sports event. Call it recorded. He's watching it on DVR. So when you made your decision to do the thing that you did, he didn't know what you were going to do, but that happened from his perspective a long time ago, meaning that he can be outside of time. He knows what ended up happening, but in the time you made the decision, you had free will and amnesty to do so.
Okay, so you think God exists outside of time, but doesn't know everything?
I don't think he knows everything. Based on I think he knows where everything is. I think he understands what exactly happened. I think he understands all of the moving parts at a potentially quantum physical, molecular, atomic level. But as far as what we were going to do with free will, we as having free will agency have amnesty to make decisions, and he didn't know what we were going to choose to do.
Does God know everything about the present?
That's fair. Yeah, I think he knows about. For the argument of what this scripture says, let's just say this: this story has already ended. We're living in it in real time as our brains process.
That's
reality.
a yes or no question. Does he know everything about the present?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. And does God experience all presence at once?
All presence at once, not necessarily. He could have experienced it.
So you think so being inside of time is experiencing a distinction between moments in time. Being outside of time means that there is no distinction in your experience of each moment at time, meaning that you eternally experience everything as just an unchanging present. You experience all moments in time, all in the present.
Nope.
Okay, sure. So then what's your account of existing outside of time?
I think I can maybe bridge a gap here. There might be some confusion. VOR, am I correct in saying that your position is roughly that God has access to the film? He just hasn't, and he exists in his own time, in his own time universe. Yeah. He has the whole film reel. He just, in his time, he just may not have looked at it all yet. But our time is completely already determined on the film reel. Would that be correct?
A good way to say it, except for I do think he has watched the film.
Oh, but okay, the film...
But his time is separate from our time.
Yes.
Gotcha, but the film reel is like completely unchangeable.
Say that one more time.
So is the film reel is what it is?
It is what it is.
Yeah,
Things
so prayer is useless?
Prayer is not useless. I love that, actually. It's a really good discussion.
Gotcha, wait, so the film reel is unchanging and unchangeable, but prayer is useful?
Prayer
if nothing's going to happen, then what's the point? If nothing's going to change.
Well, I think prayer is useful. I very much align. Somebody just said I use heresy. It's funny. I am basically a heretical Christian by that definition. So I believe the book entirely. I just think man has put dogma over it that unfortunately misrepresents who God is. And this is why we're having this discussion. And that's an important one to have. Now, prayer is, I would say, quantum. It has an effect. The way I like to think about it is a probability matrix. Go back to a video game analogy. In like Madden, your player has X amount of catch potential. 98 out of 100 catches he's going to make, he's going to always drop 2. Somehow prayer affects the probability matrix for what you would call favor, and or allows God to intercede. The idea would be that we have agency, we have free will. When we pray, we actually relinquish our will to him, who is now able to impart his will onto us because we've basically invited that. We've invited him to do so.
So how does this work in the analogy? Like, let's say that, so he's looking at the film strip laid out on a big long table, right? So God is, he's kind of just perusing, he's looking around, he's looking at different parts, and he notices in one of the frames, he notices that VOR is saying a prayer. So
Which may or may not
does
be true.
he then go and edit the later frames?
Right. Thank you for clarifying. I love that we're having this discussion, Blitz. So what it was actually, the way that I think about it, is that he interacted with us in that film in real time, meaning prayers mattered. He didn't go back and edit it.
I'm getting a call. I'm going to drop out for a minute. I'll come back later, but my food's here.
Yeah, please do. Yep. Okay, so check this. I love what Dr. Blitz said there, and I love with his mind that he's actually, helping me to solve this. It's not that he pulled the film back out, reopened it, went to that frame, made an adjustment, and put it back. It's that he experienced it much quicker. He binge watched this thing. Again, he could have been 7 days, could have been 7 minutes. From his perspective, who cares? He was reacting with us, engaging with us in real time from our perspective. But that time frame has ended. That's a loop. It is done. Put the tape on the shelf, whatever. He can go back and watch it whenever he wants to. He knows what ended up happening. He watched it on 2x speed, 1000x speed, whatever. while he watched it, he was engaging with us. But now he knows what ended up happening. So he can say, I know what Luke ended up doing. I know how long he lived, whatever. I've seen that episode. It was great. It was terrible. Whatever he would say about my episode.
This is like complete word salad to me. So is the real unchanging, or does it change?
It's funny that Blitz gets it and you don't.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, I'll make it make sense.
Wait, but does it change? Because earlier you said it doesn't change, but now you're saying it does change.
The reel is done. It's put in the can. The can is put on the shelf. This has happened. We're basically,
Wait, yes or no, does it change?
In the real time that it was happening, it was unfolding with.
When God views the tape, when the tape is already recorded, does it change?
He's not going back and changing the variable. No, there's no Mandela effect. He's not going back and rewatching
So
and
is
changing it.
So when he rewatches it, but he doesn't change it.
Right. If he's rewatching this rerun, yeah, it's a static thing. It's not changing.
Okay. And then was he there when it was like first being shot?
Yes.
Or like I'm confused.
Yes,
So he was there when he's first being shot.
Fully engaged with us.
Gotcha. So this just kicks the can down the road. So he existed in time with us. He made all his like fun little memories, and now he just has like the tape.
Kind of. I mean, the tape analogy was kind of simplistic, but it says in the book, I go back to the Bible here, there's none like me knowing the end from the beginning. He knew from the very beginning of this story. And again, I think the easy way to think about it, this is just scriptural. According to the Bible, a day for God is as 1,000 human years. In that conversion rate, it's possible that within 7 days of when Adam was created, God experienced all of everything humanity did. So it could be that by day 8, way before the serpent got involved, before whatever, God understood what ended up happening. He ends up knowing how this happens. So he binge watched it is the easy way to think about it in 7 days. So by the time either of us were born, he knows what we ended up doing. So both can be true. We had free will, we had the ability to choose, and he knew what we chose. They can both be true.
Gotcha. Do you think God changes?
I don't. Yes, he changes his mind in the book many times.
Yeah, I
times.
agree with that. But that doesn't make sense if God exists outside of time. Changing your mind. Okay, wait. So
His position is that God has God time. So
Okay.
Thank you.
there's no contradiction there.
gotcha. That's fine. So you just think that it's like a parallel timeline,
It doesn't have to be parallel.
or just that there's sure. Okay, but like God exists in a time. He's not atemporal.
Well, we don't know about wherever God is. We don't know if there's time. We don't know if there's laws of physics. I don't want to marginalize him, but he could exist in a state where there's nothing, no rules, no nothing. He's just always been there. That's a possibility. It could be that it's a physical place, the kingdom of God, i.e., we have no idea what he described it as, and probably because we couldn't understand it with our 2D, 3D brains, whatever. He exists in a place where there is either no time or he always existed in this time frame. I don't know. There's a really cool argument by a guy named Fred Belkin, who is an atheist theoretical physicist, talking about the simulation. He said, who is the computer? Who is the programmer? And where's the computer? And he said, in this scenario, the computer isn't in this universe. It's outside of this universe. And if that's true, wherever this universe is, it could have no rules, or it could have different rules than what we have. We have rules, it cannot have rules. So I can't say if he has time, if there was time. I can say that he explained that he always existed. So is that because there is time there isn't time there? We can only speculate. We don't know particularly, but I think
By
I
the way, and this is just an interesting thing to think about, but I don't think that you can have a computer if there's no consistent laws of physics.
Oh yeah. Right, so there's probably laws there. But that doesn't make any sense unless God made them.
Well, that's where you run into an issue, isn't it?
Right. No, as soon as you said it, I understand the issue. The way I like to, I almost want to pull up the theoretical physicist that talked about this. He describes this place as other. Other just meaning whatever. We might not even be able to understand it. I mean, try to explain to Steve in Minecraft or Mario in Nintendo World what the physical world is like. We're three-dimensional. We breathe air and we drink water. We're on a rock flying through space. That is a globe. flat earthers, we're experiencing all these things and we have these rules. Like, what does that mean to a 2D, 8-bit or whatever, 64-bit? We don't know. So it could be that God didn't explain it because we might not have the capacity for understanding it. We have a very terrestrial, focused, functional mind that is basically largely on, eating, sleeping, working, the things that we have to do, basic reconciliation. But it's entirely possible that we can't understand multidimensionally, whatever, what this other place is. Obviously, pure speculation, but the Bible doesn't go into it other than to say that where God is, he always was, and that from that place is how he made this reality.
Yeehaw. Thanks so much for the hat and mustache. I appreciate that, Domina.
I'm just a little bit curious. Sorry, I just finished off my run and I was just ruminating on a couple things that you said. When you were talking about like the whole atom creation thing, and then also like how God kind of exists in his own timeline or his own realm, whatever that may be. I'm just kind of curious, how do you think life came to be then?
I believe in the biblical account. Nobody's going to like this, but I believe that God made Adam out of the dirt. We have the same chemical composition and breathed life into him. I believe God created the gene code at that moment. I think forming man out of the dirt, I think another way to look at that is we are the same chemical constituent parts as the earth, meaning we can ingest things coming from the earth, and when we die, all organic material is reconstituted and reassimilated back into the earth. So we're made from the earth. We have an earth suit avatar. Again, I'm a simulation guy. So if you've seen the movie Avatar, you've got the guy, the disabled guy who's in the wheelchair. He gets into the pod. He's piloting around these blue aliens. I think that our consciousness is basically piloting an earth suit avatar. And I think God made it of the earth through information, which is DNA.
So why do we have genetic similarities to other creatures on Earth? And if we know that that's the case, then how do you think other creatures came to be?
I think God created them all. I believe in the biblical account. I believe he created them in their kind. It's interesting that we have very little scientific evidence, if none, of intermediary species. I know people are going to say Pakicetus and Tiktaalik and Lucy. We can get into all those if you want to, but we have the tips of the nodes, the fully formed creatures. We don't see the middling transition species that we should if phylogeneity was true. As far as
what about Darwin's finches?
Yeah, drawings on a piece of paper. Yeah, we have bees. By the way, I believe in natural selection. I don't know what zebrafish are. By the way,
They're a
I
type
do
of
believe
fish that have hands.
What the fuck? There's no way that's true.
Yeah, no. Okay,
True.
This
It
wild.
is true. They're great.
This is wild. So this was actually recent. This was like a few years ago. So they have certain
transitional fossils.
They have a single gene that if you flip it, their fins basically become hands. So it's like a single gene permutation. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, that's great. Nobody thinks it's a transitional fossil. I've never heard about this, but I guarantee they don't think it's transitional.
But the point is that it's a very, very it's a single mutation, like a single nucleotide mutation that allows for hands.
Sorry, but what about transitional human fossils? We have skulls showing that.
Well, I actually just had an interview yesterday with one of the most known creation scientists in our industry named Dr. Carl Werner. He's covered extensively 150 frauds that have happened. You guys can, it doesn't matter if you do this, but you can watch
creation science. Is that what we're calling it now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In what way is creationism scientific?
Do you want to get into that, or do you want to?
Yeah. Wait. So can creationism, like, what part of creationism is like observable or like lab reproducible?
Creation science deals largely with things like global flood models, mitochondrial Eve, Y chromosomal Adam, the recent dispersion of humankind from Sumeria and that region. The idea that we have fully formed kinds and no transitional species.
Wait, so what about vestigial structures? I'm sorry, I just remembered.
That's not a thing at all. All of them are wrong.
What?
They're not.
How can you just claim they're wrong?
They're wrong.
We have.
What do you? Let's go over them one by one.
Tailbones.
Yeah, it's called the coccyx. It's actually what roots all of our pelvic floor muscles. Vitally important, not vestigial. Functionality.
Hold on. So the coccyx has a bump at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
What's that bump for?
In my snowboard career, I was a professional snowboarder. It was for braking. I broke the shit out of it a bunch of times. I'm not sure what that nodule or whatever that node would be at the end of it, but it's vitally important for all of our pelvic floor muscles. Your pelvic
Right,
floor
right.
muscular system is attached to it.
But you can have those things attached to it without that bump.
Okay. So do we want to look?
why
We
is it
can
there?
look into the physiology of that. Does it serve a purpose? I've never actually looked into that. I don't know.
Well, okay, wait. What I want to
What
know.
about-
So
sorry.
okay. One thing that I'm curious about. I haven't heard a good explanation for this. Where do you think the immune system came from?
Oh shit! Where do you think the immune system came
I
from?
think it came from evolution easily.
Oh, great, perfect. Obviously, I believe God created us with an immune system. That's
Okay.
clearly, I
So,
believe
but
that.
did God also create like the viruses?
Yeah. A lot of most viruses are actually beneficial to us.
I don't think that's true. So
No, they're
there's like,
not.
are you
They're
talking
not
about
even considered
bacteria or
living
viruses?
Okay, let's do one thing at a time here. Let's do the vestigial structures, then let's get into viruses. I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys. Let's
Could I
finish
ask one? So just this is on vestigial structures. What do you think about auricular muscles?
Is that the muscle in the hand or whatever?
No, they're muscles that move your ear.
Oh, whatever. Some people have them, some people don't.
Yeah, why do you think they exist? And also, what about
Okay.
the sternalis muscle too?
Okay, let's do this. People are asking about the viruses. We're going to look up the viruses here in a
Wait,
second.
wait. Actually, I think that you should answer what she's saying.
Okay, so vestigial structures, coccyx is vitally functioned. The ear muscle, some people can move their ears, some people can't.
And why would God do that?
The sternalis muscle?
Why does it matter? That I mean, we can move our ears, we can move our hands. I don't understand. Why does it
Well,
matter? Why
okay, so
wouldn't
there's
we
like a
do that?
naturalistic explanation for this, like evolutionary reasons why this, like the ear muscles might have been important, and as like a different species, and it's no longer important. Whereas you
Yeah.
have no
We-
explanation
and we
for
could
this.
have all had movable ear muscles, and because of the genetic bottleneck that happened at the flood, the deleterious mutation of not being able to move our ear muscles became prominent and is being weeded out through natural selection because it's non-functional.
So if you
Wait.
believe in genetics, then you must believe in some sort of speciation. So would you say that people with specific ear muscles are different? Sorry.
See, the space shuttle just crashed. No, no. Humans are all exactly the same species. The human race is descendants of Adam and Eve. Yes, no, we're not. There's no species. There's no human speciation. I'm on the fence about animal speciation. I need to research that a little bit more. Most creation scientists believe in speciation. I'm leery of it. I think they've overestimated the amount of animals in history. And I'm agnostic on speciation currently. But going back to the ear muscle thing, it could be that we all had ear muscles, and that is basically I believe we're devolving. We're losing functionality, so it can be devolving out of vogue because it doesn't serve a purpose.
So what's the sternalis muscle for?
Which one is that? Is that one in the arm?
No, it's in your chest. They can come in various different types and shapes and sizes. Sometimes the sternalis muscle attaches vertically on the frontal plane of your body by your pectoralis muscle by your sternum, and it can kind of sling around you like a bag. But it serves no purpose. There is no known understanding of why it came to be. It's very rare in a lot of individuals, but it's not as rare as the auricular muscles. And then there's also the palmaris longus, another muscle that is not present in all the population, but is more common than the auricular muscle. So if all of this occurred around the same time as the flood, why was there different proportions of the population which have these muscles?
So I'm looking at the sternalis muscle. There is no apparent physiologic function of the muscle. However, there are many theories for a function. It may function as a proprioceptive sensor for thoracic wall movements. It may also take in part of the movement of the soldier's shoulder joint or have an additional role in elevation of the chest wall. This is just whatever. What is this? It's actually Wikipedia, unfortunately, but I could find the source. So
But
so much.
That's actually a super good point. Like that's if there are these differences, that we all agree that there are these differences. Some people can wiggle their ears. Some people have like this muscle in their chest. Some people have like this muscle in their forearm. If the deviation in all of these, if like the fact that some people have these and some people don't is the result of a genetic bottleneck that happened to the entire population all at once, why do they occur in different proportions?
That I really do want to address because it's really exciting. I think it's in favor of my belief system. First thing I want to say is that in answer to this muscle, basically based on the presupposition that evolution is true, vestigial structures have been touted as proof of this theory for a long time, including the appendix, right? That was a vestigial structure. I've had my appendix out and I've had an autoimmune condition ever since, including wisdom teeth. Turns out that has nothing to do with evolution. most of these whale pelvises, if not all the vestigial structures, they didn't know what the function was. So they were just like, yeah, this is a vestigial. And then it turns out that there is a function. So both can be true. It can have a function they don't know. And it can also be slowly being weeded out because of deleterious mutations we are devolving. That's to put a bow on that muscle. As far as what Blitz is saying, so if the flood happened, we could talk about all the predictions that have been validated by evidence, which I know people are obviously like, oh my God, I can't believe how stupid this guy is by saying that. But one of the things we would say is that if Adam was given the most robust, fully complete, diverse gene code, which is how this would have had to have been, then what you would have had is lifespans starting to get shorter after Adam's creation because you would have started to aggregate it, basically because of inbreeding, deleterious mutations. So lifespans would have gotten shorter, which is what they do. Then at the flood, you would have had a rapid drop off because we dropped down to 6 total gene codes, maybe 8 if Noah and his wife were having children, and you would expect lifespans to dramatically reduce, which is what happens. Before the flood, they were living 900, 850, 800, 700, lower lifespans. After the flood, it was like 250 years. So you had rampant mutation aggregation, basically mutational meltdown, severely cutting down longevity.
Wait, can you tell me what the natural mechanism is that produces people, or that like produces death basically? There's like a very specific natural mechanism in like DNA, like death of old age. Do you know
is it
what
telomere
Yeah,
shortening?
it's telomeres. Yeah. So do you have any evidence that telomeres have like changed?
They actually do have evidence that they've
Yeah,
gotten
so what's
shorter
the
over
evidence?
time.
Let's see it.
Okay, so I can't
And
answer
by
your
the way,
question. Blitz, 'cause we're doing this now.
That did not really address my question that I stole from
Right.
Snitch.
Because I wasn't able to finish it. Because Ian,
I understand. I'm just.
Okay.
I just
Also,
wanna,
I just
I'm still interested.
also I just wanted to like add in that the serratus posterior, I believe.
Oop, can't hear you when you're off the app.
Oh, sorry. The serratus posterior superior is what elevates the chest wall. So if this is the case, then why do we have 2 muscles instead of just 1? And why do some people have multiple sternalis muscles? They can have up to like 3 or 4 on either side, while some people only have 1. And then also, why is it more common in females than males? Why
No
do
idea.
we have some palmaris longest muscles? Like,
Okay, so let
there's
me.
a ton of muscles
We're back to
there.
this, and then I want to answer what Blitz said as best I can. So we're going to have variation. These are all exactly full functioning humankind. Again, the idea that we had more of these muscles and we are losing them, losing function, wouldn't be evidence for evolution. It would be evidence of de-evolution that we're losing functionality. That we had a stronger human physique, more muscles, these things, and that is being lost over time because of entropy, that would make sense. So I don't know exactly what we had in the past. I don't know, but my guess is deleterious mutations. And I think that's a sufficient answer. And you could tell me if it's not. The Blitz thing, what we would have had, and I'm not good at, I don't know genetics well enough, but I've talked to obviously a lot of the geneticists on here. We disagree fervently, GT and Simon Dan and all the other people who study this. But what we would have is recessive gene, a robust recessive gene pool that would have been reduced down at the time of Noah, which at that point you would have had more hereditary, more similar features, but you would have still had recessive gene potential. So, whatever, instead of maybe every 10th or 100th child or something, you would get some of this recessive gene interplay. So the idea that we would have diversity and pockets of this based on genetic drift, which is a thing, people going into an area and reproducing similar features would make sense, but for there to be recessive potential that would crop up would also make sense because of, I think, the way the genetics works. Does that answer the question, Blitz, or no?
I just wanted to. Oh, sorry.
Roughly, but not really, because I was under the impression, perhaps I just misunderstood you. I was under the impression that the reason why there is a certain ratio. I was under the impression that the reason you gave for why there's a certain ratio of people being able to wiggle their ears, for example, was because of this genetic bottleneck. But if that wasn't your reason, if your reasoning was just genetic drift and mutations and stuff, then
Right.
my question was relevant anyway. So
Yeah,
by all
no,
means, continue.
we wouldn't have ratio, although, there's some really interesting studies. I've covered the potential dispersion of Noah's sons into Europe and into Africa, where we get the Shemites. They're actually the Semites are the Shemites. There's really interesting biophysical, cultural connections to the potential dispersal from Ararat 5,300 years ago. I would say that there's going to be certain genetic propensities based on which one of the descendants of Noah there are. You've got the Japhethites, largely in more north, and you've got the Cushites more in the Africa region, and you've got the Shemites more in the Middle East region. But there's going to be this interplay. But as far as what the ratios and stuff would be, I'm not well versed enough in it. Whatever that potential would have been reassimilated genetically over time.
Just wanted to clarify that evolution is the process by which diversity occurs. It's not the process by which an organism becomes more complex. So the fact that we are losing useless, quote unquote, muscles and stuff like that is actually evidence of evolution because we are becoming more efficient. So that would not hold up.
Your argument is the proof that Darwin is right is us losing functionality.
Well, yeah, wait, like losing useless functionality is absolutely proof. Yeah, like we expend literal human resources on like these worthless muscles and areas. These resources would be better spent elsewhere in the places that actually do help us survive. Yeah, that's like a great argument.
And evolution is the process of diversity, not complexity.
Okay, so I don't think this is a necessary point to continue on, but we can continue. So the idea that we had higher functionality at one point, and we are devolving.
It wasn't higher functionality. We were spending energy on useless things that we already had muscles for. The serratus posterior superior already elevates the chest wall. We don't need a sternalis muscle.
Right, but you're saying this muscle existed because at one point it had a function, right? You don't believe that the muscle just popped up for no reason.
No, I believe it had a function in a previous species.
Right, so you believe it had a function in previous species, that it was garnered through genetic mutation, and then now we don't use that muscle, so it's now being slowly whittled away, whatever, through recombination through deleterious mutations.
Yeah, what's the critique? What's the contradiction into?
It's not a deleterious mutation because it's not a bad thing that we're not using resources on something that's useless. That's
Maybe this would be a good opportunity for you to explain the ridiculousness of Darwinian evolution. Will you tell the chat how we're losing this muscle, how that's happening, based on your belief system?
Random mutations, genetic drift, and just the fact that we don't need the muscle anymore, we don't need to spend energy on it. I don't really see what you mean. I'm saying that it's coming from a different species of animal that was from the past, and that now that we're humans and we're not using that muscle, it's slowly being, I guess.
So you believe in Lamarckian evolution? See, it's not Darwinian evolution what you're talking about.
Wait. But do you have a critique of the thing that she just said?
I do. Yeah, it's proof of de-evolution. It has nothing to do with Darwinian evolution.
So what do you mean by de-evolution?
It's not de-evolution. If it's something that we're not using, it's not de-evolution.
Okay, so check this out. Can I address you by a name, nice young lady that's in here, or just Science? I'll call you Science. All right, Science. So you're saying in this chat right now that at one point we had garnered a new functionality through mutation. We had a muscle that we were using. Then we stopped using the muscle, and so the muscle is going away, right? If you don't lose it, you use it.
I'm not saying that we were using it specifically. So the concept of evolution is that one species basically speciates into, like, let's say one or two other species. One species dies off, yada, yada, yada. So that's the concept of evolution. And evolution is driven by genetic drifts, like speciation, genetic mutations primarily, and a few other things. I took genetics a year ago, so I'm a little shady on all of the terminology. However, that doesn't change the concept that evolution is the process of diversity and the process that species exist, meaning that there's different species, and our species already had, or I guess we've developed a muscle, the serratus posterior superior, that was sufficient and enough in producing chest wall elevation. But the sternalis was just a secondary muscle that wasn't necessarily having any significant purpose. So over time, people without this muscle, whenever they, I guess, repopulated, I'm sorry, it's really awkward saying that, but whenever they reproduced, people without the muscle, they weren't more genetically favored to survive than people with the muscle, so it slowly started dying out of existence because people who didn't have the muscle were not, they weren't dying off. So it wasn't something that was, the muscle wasn't a genetic favor, it wasn't providing them benefit.
Right. So this is where Darwinian evolution falls apart. And why this argument in particular, which they're moving away from Darwinian evolution because it doesn't have the explanatory power.
Wait, and I, I agree.
No,
You can like not respond to the things that she said, but what's the critique of like the specific things that she said? Like Darwin's not in this call.
This is why.
Also, we're moving away from Darwinian evolution because of epigenetics, not because it just doesn't exist.
Okay. So the argument for everybody, including Ian, I don't think you're following this discussion. I don't think you're following this part of the argument.
Yeah, I agree. You can say that I'm not tracking, but you're
Right,
literally
that's
just trying to grandstand and use rhetoric to avoid answering the
Watch this.
critiques.
No, I'm going to
then
thoroughly
prove
destroy
it. Prove it.
this
Yeah,
piece
then
of
do it.
information
Then do it.
that I just
Don't
want
say
everybody
don't
to be
say you'll do it.
exactly
Just
on
do
board
it.
with what's about to happen.
Yeah, don't say you'll do it. Just do it.
Okay.
If what you
Of
say is
course.
true,
Yeah, watch.
if this has the implications you want, then by just doing it, you'll be able to demonstrate that to everybody self-evidently. But when you grandstand, it's just because you're biding for time because you don't have anything to say. So go for it.
Okay, so the theory of Darwinian evolution posits that random genetic mutations, transcription errors, create a new kind of functionality, something new, that some novel bit of biophysical functionality that is a benefit in a niche. Because of this, through reproduction, it ends up garnering more and more strength, and eventually you garner a new adaptive functionality. The scenario.
No, genetic mutations don't have to be beneficial. They also can be deleterious. It's the concept of natural selection where those with deleterious mutations die off while those with good mutations tend to survive. It's not necessarily a part of Darwinian evolution, though. It's the fact that natural selection also exists beside it.
Okay, so in this scenario, the argument would be, if you subscribe to Darwinian evolution, that the individuals who don't have this muscle have garnered some sort of strategic advantage. Therefore, they are beginning to reproduce and recapitulate this new novel biophysiology that doesn't have the muscle. The idea would be that because the muscle doesn't exist anymore, it's gaining functionality and therefore is becoming a predominant trait. Is this true? Is this what you believe?
Wait, can you repeat that? That just sounded like a word salad, sorry.
Okay. So Darwinian evolution posits that a transcription error creates new functionality. This new functionality has a benefit. Because it's a benefit, it's naturally selected and garners more reproductive offspring that's redundant that have this new trait. If you're going the reverse of this, the idea is one individual, you have two children. One child is born with this muscle that nobody uses. Another child is born without the muscle that nobody uses. If you're adhering to Darwinian evolution, you would then have to argue that the individual without the muscle has a reproductive advantage. And this is why the trait is being phased out, because it's a reproductive advantage to not have the muscle.
No, that's not what that's not what it is at all, actually.
I'm going to dip out for a bit. I'll be back later. My mom has to call me though, so
Yep, see ya.
I'll be back.
Yep,
See ya.
see you later, Blitz.
So what I'm arguing is that because this muscle, people without this muscle are not hindered, they're not dying off. It was a concept for, what was the term? I have to look back at it real quick. But there's a concept where people who, if they don't die off, then eventually a gene could start to slip in either way, because it's not advantageous, it's also not deleterious. So I'm not arguing that it's advantageous or deleterious, I'm arguing that it's neutral, but it just so happened to start dying off or leaving the population.
It just so happens. You think that's science?
That's genetics. Random mutations are genetics. Mutations are not supposed to be beneficial or deleterious. It's based on your environment. That's why something like sickle cell anemia is advantageous in one allele, but is not advantageous in two alleles, yet you still see it in a higher rate in certain populations.
Okay, so then your argument is that it's becoming more predominant, that eventually we're not going to have this muscle, right? Wouldn't that be your argument? That in the trajectory that we're on, fast forward 1,000 years, 100,000 years, whatever, this muscle has been phased out entirely out of the human physiology. Is this correct? My rooster agrees.
One sec, I'm trying to like look at that exact term that I was looking at before.
After this, Ian, do you want to get back to the God of the Bible being logical? I'm going to wrap up pretty soon.
Sure, yeah, we can do that. Yep, no problem with that. Yep. I'd love to hear your answers to just like the regular problem of evil. It's good practice for me. While we wait for this, yeah, make sure you're double tapping on that screen. Let's get all the way up to 300k likes. You can leave as many likes as you want. Share it with your friends. Drop a comment as well. What's that?
Yep,
How's it
support
going?
Ian. Okay, so go ahead, Science.
Just quickly repeat what you said.
Again. Okay, so the it's a ridiculous idea, in my opinion, to think that when this has absolutely no outcome or bearing on our sexual fitness or reproductive fitness, that it would either be in the body or not be in the body. So I guess my question is, do you think that in 1,000 or 100,000 or 1,000,000 years, humans won't have this muscle and we're just watching it being phased out? Is this what you believe?
To an extent, yes, because people without this muscle are still able to reproduce. It's not necessarily an advantage, but it's also not necessarily a disadvantage to have this muscle. So people who don't have this muscle can still reproduce. And let's say they happen to reproduce a little bit more. Oh my God, now it's like starting to disappear from the population. But if we specifically seek out people with the sternalis muscle and start like forcing them to repopulate, then that would end up with more people with the sternalis muscle. But with the fact that not having a sternalis muscle does not necessarily make you disadvantaged towards being able to have children, then that's why it's dying off, because nobody is seeking people out with this muscle.
Yeah, so what you're saying is it has absolutely nothing to do with Darwinian evolution. It has no bearing on reproductive fitness. It's
because we're talking about different. Well, because this muscle is present in species that came before us and has served a purpose in species that came before us, but in our species, it is not necessary.
Okay, so let me clarify my stance. Natural selection is a thing. We have adaptation. We have natural selection. If science comes up with a better explanation, that's why I say Darwinian evolution, than random mutations. This is called neo-Darwinian evolution. When and if they come up with something better, and maybe along the lines of punctuated equilibrium or epigenetics, then that theory is going to become more believable. The version that we've been taught, that random mistakes, transcription errors in the gene code can explain...
Wait, but we know epigenetics. We know epigenetics plays a role.
Right.
There was a whole entire thing about like obesity and epigenetics occurring based off of like people who were starving.
Right.
So epigenetics does exist.
It does, yeah. So Darwin was wrong. Exactly.
I'm not
yes.
arguing that
Wait.
Darwin was completely right. I'm
Like
arguing.
famously. Yeah, wait, you're like shadowboxing once again. I think it's been like made very clear, like we're not defending like evolution as was written by Darwin 100% entirely, but just like the framework that Darwin put forward, this is what we both believe in.
Yeah, we're supporting it and then adding on. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Great. Yeah, so Darwinian evolution is wrong, like I've been saying.
Yes,
So-
as nobody
And
has
that's fine.
agreed. Yeah, as was pointed out earlier, that you should just be responding to the what people are saying, not like a theory that you have in our head. Otherwise, you're just shadowboxing.
Okay, well, that's all I've said is Darwinian evolution is done. That's all I've ever said. I just say this.
Well, yeah. So like evolution is still true, but evolution is proposed by Darwin.
Right, so
is-
evolution, but we have no idea how it happened, is where we're at in science.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just basic logic. Like the things that survive and reproduce are going to survive and reproduce. Like,
No, Ian. No, Ian.
wait, so you disagree with the statement that
Darwin
things that
was
wait. So you disagree with the statement that things that survive and reproduce are going to survive and reproduce? You disagree with that
No,
statement?
you just
take
don't
issue?
understand what you're saying. You don't
Oh,
understand
I
what
think
you're saying.
I think I understand what I'm saying pretty
No, you
clearly.
don't.
So I think
Ian, how
you're
did
just
it-
not
how did
tracking.
it-
What's your
No.
What's your critique? What's your critique of the statement that the things that are going to survive and reproduce are going to survive and reproduce? That's just the law of identity. What's your
I don't
critique of that
disagree with that.
statement?
I don't
Perfect. So
disagree
then
with
why
that.
are you like whining and moping?
Because how did you get the new functionality that gave you the benefit to survive?
Yes, genetic mutations. Each step helps and is advantageous.
Right, so you still believe in Darwin. You think it's still genetic mutations.
Well,
No,
yeah.
we
So
believe in Darwin and we're adding on. That's the point. Like, we're
Yeah.
not saying that Darwin was 100% correct. We're saying Darwin was correct in an extent, but then we added on to it with epigenetics and environmental, like, factors and stuff like that. We're not saying that he's 100% correct.
Yep, it's genetic mutations and epigenetics.
Okay, so
Exactly.
first off, I mean, I would argue the mutation having any beneficial. I mean, you could say sickle cell, but obviously that's only specific to a single group of people, to a specific area dealing with a specific malaria. But the idea that mutation is causing order is it needs to be revamped. And Lamarckian evolution was kind of more in that vein. Huxley didn't even necessarily trust Darwin.
I'm not really sure what you're talking about, but like, let's get back to the point. So I think mutation is just like a change in a trait. So some mutations are advantageous, some mutations are neutral, some mutations are detrimental. Now, just based on like pure probability, the things that are more disposed to having traits that help them survive are going to survive. That's just statistics. And when they survive, they're going to reproduce. And through reproduction, they're going to spread these genetics. Now, if these genetics are advantageous, they're more likely to survive and reproduce. If they're neutrally advantageous, or if they're like just neutral, not advantageous, then they won't.
They'll swing either way.
Or like swing either way. Not that they won't. They'll swing either way. And if it's like disadvantageous, then they are less likely to reproduce. Thus, less likely. So over time, you're going to see a collection of advantageous traits being formed.
Oh, another good example of
what
this
evidence do
would
we have
be
of what you just said? I would love to see the
Like
evidence
the
of
fossil
advantageous
record, genetic
mutations.
similarities, like
another good example would be forearm muscles. Is how we have like some of our forearm muscles, like for example, I mentioned it before. It was like the palmaris longus or something, but it's starting to disappear from the human race. However, we have other forearm muscles which specifically move your thumb or specifically move your index finger. And let's say we use our thumb finger more, that tends to stick around for a little bit longer. We're not saying that it's gonna like swing either way all the time, but things that are neutral or slightly advantageous are more likely to stick around just statistically.
Yep. So we're devolving.
Wait, so what do you mean by devolving?
That's not
No, we're not
devolving.
devolving, we're evolving. So getting rid of negative or like neutral things is good, actually. That's evolution. Why would your body want to spend resources on something that does nothing for it, that in no way helps with your survival or your reproduction?
Well, first off,
If you have
my
a
body
part of your
isn't
body that doesn't help
sentiently
you, then you should be
engaging in
spending
its
less
outcome.
resources on it and start spending more resources on things that actually do help in your survival. It's just that simple.
Well,
It's not
kind of that
devolving,
simple.
it's evolving.
Okay, so we are acquiring 6 to 15 deleterious mutations per generation, and this has been noted for over 500 years of genetic studies. We are seeing an aggregation and accumulation of deleterious mutations. We are not seeing an aggregation of positive mutations. We are seeing what looks like, what the evidence is pointing to, is a fully robust, complete gene
Could I
code
have a
that
source
is
for
getting
that?
worse over time.
Could I have a source for that?
Sure. Let's see
Because
here.
I would like to know exactly how those mutations are deleterious. And if you're talking about like genetic diseases like cancer, then that would be also age associated, because a lot of those genetic diseases are mainly associated with increases in age. So that wouldn't be, you couldn't make that argument then.
Let's see here. Let's try and find something that you would trust. Human
Anything on
mutation-
PMC or PubMed.
Human deleterious mutations generations. It'll take me a second to find this. PNAS, rate, molecular spectrum, and consequences of human. Let me see. I'll pull up the paper in a second.
Rate and what?
Rate, molecular spectrum, and consequences of human. I imagine it's human evolution. Let me look really fast, really far down on the paper. Dang it.
I am also curious, are these deleterious mutations in response to our behavior on, like, for example, our phones, like hunching over, stuff like that? Is it also in response to us living longer? So
this is looking back, I think, through 500 years. I mean, you could maybe say the Industrial Revolution, but this is just because of the law of entropy. Okay. First off, you guys haven't provided a
Wait,
single
wait,
bit
but
of
you're
proof.
you're the
First
one who
off,
made
a
the
single bit of proof.
affirmative claim.
Okay,
Second
yeah,
of all,
here it
yes, we
is.
did via the genetic record and via
Oh
the
shit,
fossil record.
that is not proof. You guys,
Yes, it
it's such a
is.
joke.
Wait, and I agree that you can try to pivot away from this and shift the burden back
What?
onto
Okay,
us. But the
Ian,
fact of
how
the
has that
matter
gone for
is
you
that
so
you're the
far?
one who
I've
made the affirmative claim,
validated
and you're the
every
one who's
single thing that
responsible
I've
for giving
said.
the evidence for the
Okay,
affirmative claim.
did you pull up the paper? I told you to pull up
Yep,
the paper.
I did. Yeah, I'm looking
Okay.
at it right now, right
Using
this
today's
second.
estimates of the human genome content, approximately 20,500 genes, these numbers scale up to 0.9 to 4.5 deleterious mutations per diploid genome per generation. 1 to 5, some people say 12, some people say 15.
What is considered deleterious?
Negative. We know what, do you want
Okay,
me to define
so which
deleterious?
mutations? No, I want you to find the specific mutations that you're talking about.
I wish you
and
guys
what
could
are
see
the
the double standard that
consequences?
you guys exist on. I'm actually showing you data, not
Wait,
scientists.
so I agree that you can do
taking
meta
things that happen.
commentary, but it's just not relevant. Engage with the argument.
Okay, what do you want to?
I'm just asking, all I'm asking for is to know the specific, like, what is specifically deleterious about these mutations? Like, what are the mutations? Like, if you're going to say there's more deleterious mutations, you should be able to tell me which specific mutations. And what are the consequences?
Should we read the paper? Long-term consequence of germline mutation. Let's see here. What were
so
these
you're
mutations?
talking about like germline mutations here. Okay, so is this in response to inbreeding?
Although mutation provides the fuel for phenotypic evolution, it also imposes a substantial burden of fitness through the production of predominantly deleterious let's see. Sorry,
Allele.
I'm not getting the word allele. A matter of concern for a human health perspective, which is really basically what I was saying. Yeah, we're devolving. Here recently established databases of de novo mutations for monogenic disorders are used to determine estimate rate and molecular spectrum of spontaneous.
So you're talking about genetic
rising.
disorders, which are also in response to inbreeding, which is an environmental factor that was extremely prevalent in our recent history. I know you don't think that 200 years is probably recent. I don't think it is, but it's still technically recent. If you're talking about the timeline, especially if you're referencing that we are devolving. If people were inbreeding for about 200 years, then that would make sense that we're seeing more genetic-based diseases. And then on top of that, we've got people who are living longer, and living longer is associated with higher rates of Alzheimer's, cancer, and age-associated diseases due to higher rates of mutation. But that does not necessarily mean that we are devolving in response to
Your
muscles.
stance here is you don't think you're gonna totally oppose in your bias the entire scientific enterprise and say that we are not
You still haven't
aggregating
specifically
deleterious
told
mutations.
Wait, can
You
we
still
get?
haven't specifically
wild.
told me those mutations.
Let me tell you the chat. The reason she's doing this is it looks bad.
Pivot to lost on the substance, pivoting to meta commentary. Engage with the argument.
What do you want me to say?
Yeah,
Tell me the
I want to
specific
respond to the
deleterious
argument.
mutations.
So you
Bruh,
don't think
this
we're
is-
okay? No. You don't think we're aggregating deleterious mutations? Guest, is that true? Science, are you saying we are not aggregating deleterious mutations?
No, I don't.
Okay, that is
Because you still haven't
entirely
proved that
factually
we-
wrong. Are
Then prove it.
humans?
Then
okay.
prove it.
And when I do what? Are humans aggregating
What deleterious mutations?
deleterious mutations? I spelled that wrong.
And keyword, we need to make this clear that it's not we're aggregating deleterious mutations based off of our like environment and our behavior, but we're aggregating it because we're quote unquote devolving because evolution isn't quote unquote real. So that's the specifics here that we need to like clarify. Is that
So then, on the same hand, if I show you that we're aggregating deleterious mutations, is my claim correct?
can prove that it's not due to our doing and our behavior.
Okay, I got to prove something. So let's see here. The paper that we were just looking at is pretty conclusive. We can go through that a little bit, but
If you can prove that it's not due to our behavior and our practice of inbreeding for 200 years, then I don't.
Wait, your paper.
Why would I have to do that?
Wait. Your paper is a refinement of prior estimates. This is like just discovering new things that we had. This is not like the creation of like new genetic what's the term? Deleterious mutations. This is not the
new
creation of new
deleterious mutations.
deleterious mutations. This is the discovery and the accounting of ones that have not yet been discovered. You literally did not read the study that you just cited. It does not agree with you.
That's not okay. I'm trying to do this other research. You're saying that what I just read is disagreeing with what I said. Okay, let's go to that actually paragraph here.
Yeah,
this is-
so
this
let's.
is-
I
it's
want you
actually
to
conservative,
wait.
right?
You can control F. Influx of new data or more alleles and more disorders, allowing for a refinement of prior estimates and the very recent emergence of substantial data from other species, providing a basis for comparative analysis. They discovered
Right.
new deleterious mutations.
Yeah, we have
Like
new deleterious
they
mutations.
discovered them, not that they came about. It's just they
What?
took a new survey and they got more accurate with their data.
They discovered,
Yeah, they brought
just
it down from 15 mutations to 5. Yeah.
Wait,
that-
you're just like not
they
tracking
brought
what
it
the
down
article's
from
saying.
15 to 5. That's a good thing.
Yes,
Don't
but
you
it's still,
think?
but it is. It's good, but it's still. We are still aggregating. I want everybody to know. You're saying that we are not aggregating humans are not aggregating deleterious mutations because it looks bad for the theory of evolution.
No. I'm saying that we're not aggregating deleterious mutations by the concept of evolution. We're aggregating them because of our own inbreeding practices from the past, based on royalty and all of that other stuff, which we do have evidence for, where
Right, of
there's
course,
higher
inbreeding
rates
happened,
of
of
genetic
course.
diseases in those that are
Yes.
inbreeding.
Yes.
So-
so you're saying it happens, but it's only happening because of inbreeding or environmental factors, not because
Yes, and unless you
random
can prove
transcription errors.
otherwise,
Okay,
yes,
well, I
and
will
unless you
prove
can prove otherwise, then
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I thought we were gonna have a discussion about other things, but we're gonna prove to my guest here, because hopefully everybody will see this. It's gonna take some nerding out, some science research. We're going to prove that we are aggregating deleterious mutations, humans are, and it's not specific to inbreeding, it's a transcription error. It has to do with the transcription process of the 6 billion base pairs having mistakes when the transcription process happens. It's going to take me a little bit. The evidence is on my side, and maybe my guest will be intellectually honest and say, yes, you've proven that, and it looks bad for Darwinian evolution because we are, in fact, evolving. Do we agree to the terms? If I can prove this.
You can prove the aggregation. Wait, scientific snitch. Is that in line?
that we're aggregating deleterious mutations based off of transcriptional errors.
Okay, good.
And you can prove that it's not based off of environment or
Right.
behavior.
I'll do my best to do that. Okay, so in summary, it is remarkable that this is the same article that Ian just misrepresented. Before the elucidation of the structure of the DNA.
Pure projection. I'll read the quote one
Yeah,
more
read it.
time.
Read it.
Wait. Just for
Go
that,
ahead.
I'm reading the quote one more time. Influx of new data on more alleles and more disorders, allowing for refinement of prior estimates. And the very recent emergence of substantial data from other species provides a basis for comparative analysis. VOR, you are just projecting.
No, they're refining a number from 15 mutations down to 5.
It's
They're not
a
getting away
difference
with
in
it.
the estimate.
Right. What did you think you had me on there? They still have
Yeah.
deleterious mutations.
It's
What do you
a
think you
new
have?
account. It's a new account of it.
It's
It's a
re-
more
an account of
refined,
past
more modern
ones.
account.
Oh man, it's refining an existing number that they had with new data. It's still there. It's still there. It's not going away. They've
So if you're saying
brought
that we
up a new
refined
number.
it,
Yeah.
if you're saying we refined it from 15 to 5, doesn't that mean that we're not seeing as many deleterious mutations, or at least we're not seeing as many in the estimate?
1 to 5. Look, again, the numbers, and I've researched this thoroughly for the last 2 years. We have from 1 to 15 deleterious mutations proven scientifically. This new estimate of 4.5, that's fine. That's a very conservative number. We can find people that have done papers. This is one paper, this isn't proof, that have that number at 12 to 15. We're going to look at that there are deleterious mutations, and then we're going to confirm that it's transcription errors, not
And
inbreeding
they're
and
persisting?
environmental.
And they're persisting?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's finish this paragraph and we'll move on. In summary, it is remarkable that 60 years ago, before the elucidation of the structure of the DNA and drawing on very limited data of the assumption of just under 5,000 genes in the human genome, Miller estimated the average newborn acquires 0.2 to 1 de novo, which is new deleterious mutations. Using today's estimate, they actually went the other way, Ian, sorry. I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. Using today's estimate of the human genome content, approximately 22,500 genes, these numbers scale up, so they refined it up, Ian, which is why I said you didn't understand the thing you were saying, to 0.9 to 4.5 deleterious mutations per diploid genome per generation.
So out of I am very curious, because if you're saying per diploid generation, are you saying that these mutations are persisting from generation to generation and they don't die off?
Well,
These individuals are
die
surviving.
off isn't the right word. It can be recombined with someone who doesn't have that genetic error, and they can be it can be genetically
Masked?
favored. Masked,
Yes,
yeah,
because
or
it's
it
a
can be done away with.
like sickle
Yeah.
cell disease, right? So then how exactly can you say that that's a disadvantage if something like sickle cell disease, which is a disadvantage with two alleles, but then let's say the heterozygote moves to a place with a lot of malaria, oh, now it's a benefit. So how is that deleterious?
Oh, we're talking about sickle cell particularly. I'm trying to do this research here. What do you want to
Yeah,
know?
let's go through sickle cell.
So sickle cell is a result of loss of information, lower functionality that benefits specific individuals suffering from malaria, the epidemic of malaria, basically. It's still loss of function. Yes, it gains an advantage, but it's loss of function, not gain of function.
Yes,
So what is your point?
It's not a deleterious mutation.
it's not a no, it's not a deleterious mutation if it's in one allele. So if the person is a heterozygote, they are less likely to suffer in simplified terms, they're less likely to suffer as badly from malaria than somebody with, for say, two alleles or no alleles. So that's why it's in a higher, it's more common in like those, what is it? The equator, in regions around the equator where there's a lot of mosquitoes with malaria. So there, it's not deleterious. Being a heterozygote there, oh, you're not gonna suffer malaria as bad, which is actually a benefit.
Okay, I don't want to talk about that part anymore. I think I want to do this here. I mean, we can. It's just we've already stated our cases on that.
Gotcha. No, you're welcome to run from the facts if you want.
Okay, let's actually talk about it. But then what's really frustrating about this conversation, I've been doing this for hours with you guys. You ask something, I prove you wrong, I prove my case, I provide evidence.
But you
Instead
didn't
of
prove me
conceding,
wrong.
You move on to the next thing. I've just been
Wait,
galloping
you
around
haven't
guys
proven
for
anyone
hours.
wrong on anything.
Okay, so let me prove her wrong about the deleterious mutations.
Yeah,
and
we've been
then
waiting.
let's
We've
go
been
back to
waiting.
this.
You've been
Okay.
trying to do that this entire time.
I'm trying to have a discussion and do research at the same time. I'm doing a pretty good considering I can't multitask. University of Southern California. Mutagens cause transcription errors. DNA mutations occur when the genome is inaccurately copied during cell division, leading to newly formed cells with a mistake in their DNA.
Wait, you just said mutagens. So are you talking about like carcinogenic like pollution? Then that's environment. That's not just because evolution doesn't exist.
Let's look at this specifically. This is the first article, the discovery that toxic stressors. Okay, that's good. Yeah, for you, absolutely. That's a point in favor of what you're saying, which is that toxic stressors can cause errors in gene transcription. And so the idea that mutagens are actually aiding into deleterious mutations, first off, I wouldn't disagree with, because we know that. We know smoking and electromagnetic frequency and stuff is adding to mistakes. But we also, I think we know that transcription errors from male-female recombination has deleterious mutations just at the reproduction moment, not at the living in your life environmental moment.
But if you can prove that those deleterious mutations are persisting and they don't die out, that's when I'll agree with you. When, like, let's say you say somebody has like a here's a good example. If somebody was born with like a duplicate gene or something and it was causing an increased risk of cancer, if that increased risk of cancer continued down the line and people weren't dying off, then yeah, I would agree. But as we know, like people who suffer genetic diseases like Huntington's, they don't live a very long life, unfortunately, and it's very not great. Like, for example, muscle dystrophy, like that's not something that's consistently like thriving in our population. That's something that people get and then they die.
Let's read this.
Something really quick that might help add some clarity here. Would that be okay?
Yeah,
So
go for
I
it.
just looked up because I'm just interested in how like deleterious gene mutation, how it propagates through a population. So I just found something from like '98. They were doing like a numerical study of gene propagation, it looks like. So I'm just going to read the first few sentences of this abstract, then I'll shut up. And this is in plants, but it's like the same idea. The accumulation of mildly deleterious mutations accompanying recurrent regeneration of plant germplasma was modeled under regeneration conditions characterized by different amounts of selection and genetic drift. Under some regeneration conditions, sample sizes greater than 75 individuals and bulk harvesting of seed, mutation accumulation was negligible, but under others, sample sizes less than 75 individuals or equalization of seed production by individual plants, mutation numbers per genome increased significantly during the 25 to 50 cycles of regeneration. Then they go on to talk about the details of how their modeling worked. But what it seems to be is that you can have what this seems to be suggesting is that you can have a population that has a certain amount of deleterious mutations each generation, but depending on the size of the population that exists in, how often genes are exchanged with each other, and so on, that can affect whether or not those deleterious mutations in each that will affect how the deleterious mutations in each generation, how likely it is to actually be maintained generation over generation, or whether it's likely to quote unquote regenerate away from those deleterious mutations. So it's not as cut and dried as if there's deleterious mutations, they're definitely passed on. Right.
I love that. Thank you, Dr. Blitz. What I'm reading is the same thing, and I wouldn't have made the claim that environmental stressors aren't exacerbating deleterious mutation. Of course, that's happening. Thank you for elucidating that. But transcription errors also happen, deleterious mistakes also happen at recombination. It can be both. It's more likely during mutagens.
Nobody's arguing that doesn't exist.
The point is whether they actually get propagated. Right?
Yeah.
So you're saying they happen. I feel like this is kind of changing the argument a little bit. So you're saying deleterious transcription errors do happen, which is what I thought that I was agreeing to. You're saying that does happen, and it can be from not inbreeding, and it can be from not environmental sensors. It's just that the deleterious mutations don't stick because they can be recombined out. Is that correct? Because
basically, I haven't made any arguments in the matter. I was just going off of that. But essentially, yeah, it looks like if you have enough gene transfer, if you have large enough sample sizes, then deleterious mutations tend to not stick around.
And that's why we're saying that we're not devolving. That's the main argument here, is that these deleterious mutations are not causing us to devolve. That's the point.
And they're not accumulating. That's the important point.
Yeah.
While they happen in
that's the very
generation,
important point there.
I appreciate
they
that.
are accumulating. They are.
No, but they're not.
That's the point of contention, right?
So have you read the paper, A High Substitution Rate in the Mitochondrial Genome? I don't have time to do it. I've been on this for hours. I actually have to go in a minute. In that, the assumed, based on phylogeneity, the assumed mitochondrial basically mutation substitution rate.
What's the title?
I just said it a second ago. Observing a high substitution rate in the mitochondrial control region. I believe that's close.
Okay, thanks.
It's actually the one that I've cited many times, where based on the rate that they have seen, mitochondrial Eve would have lived 6,500 years ago, which according to them is impossible, obviously, because we know it's much older than that. But that's an interesting side point to this.
I'm not able to find this paper.
Wait, hold up. You're looking at mitochondrial DNA. That only comes from the mother. So you're not looking at genomic DNA. So we're not arguing the same thing here, which is that humans are devolving, not our mitochondria.
Say the very last line again.
The argument here is that you're saying that humans are devolving, not our mitochondria.
Okay, I heard the devolve. That is my argument. But you're obviously Y chromosomal and mitochondrial, right? We have the both of them. They would all be devolving. We would see this in all reproduction.
Mitochondrial DNA only comes from your mother.
Right, I understand that. I don't understand why that matters.
So the point is that we're not talking about mitochondrial DNA. We're talking about genomic DNA and deleterious errors that occur in genomic DNA.
Okay, so let me pull up this article, and then I'll leave you guys with it. It's going to take me a minute, but I really got to get out of here. Gmail, it's a high substitution rate observed. I just have to pull it up here. High substitution rate. And I'll give you the exact title. High substitution rate. Am I in the wrong email? Forward Magazine. Here it is. Nope, that's a Big Bang thing. Am I just on the wrong email? Let me pull up my the other email. Just give me a second. Sorry, guys. I
did find it. I have the title if you want it. Yeah, it's a high observed substitution rate in the human mitochondrial DNA control region. It's from 1997. It's also been cited a shit ton of times, like 800 times or something like that.
Yeah, I've actually debated scientists on this. So it reads here.
Wonder if there are any follow-up observations.
Yeah, I'd be interested
It's
if
kinda
you
old.
did this. So the observed substitution rate reported here is very high compared to rates inferred from evolutionary studies. This is in the discussion, Dr. Blitz, which is page 1.
I don't actually have the whole thing. I just have the abstract.
Well, I'll flip my
I can get
camera.
you guys the whole thing because I'm currently working, so I have access to like full text.
Okay. Well, this is going to be really hard for you guys to see, but in the discussion outline, the observed substitution rate reported here is very high compared to rates inferred from evolutionary studies. A wider range of CR substitution rates have been derived from phylogenetic studies, which is basically where how the molecular clock is calibrated. So studies spanning roughly 0.025 to 0.026 site per MYR, million year, I guess, including confidence intervals of these numbers. A study yielding one of the faster estimates gave the substitution rate of the hypervariable region at 0.118 to plus 0.031. Assuming a generation time of 20 years, this corresponds to 1/600th generations in age for the mtDNA most recent common ancestor at 133,000 years ago. This is where you always hear about how old is mitochondrial Eve. Sometimes she's 120, 150, 200. It's all based on the calibration of the molecular clock based on phylogeneity. Anyways, thus our observation of the substitution rate of 2.5 per site is roughly 20-fold higher than would be predicted from phylogenetic analysis. So they assumed, based on wanting the time frame of when she would have existed, this number, but it was 20-fold higher at 2.5. Anyways, continuing, using our empirical rate to calibrate the mtDNA molecular clock would result in an age of the most recent common ancestor of only 6,500 years ago, clearly incompatible with the known age of modern humans. Even acknowledging that the MRCA of mtDNA may be younger than the MRCA of modern humans, it remains implausible to explain known geographic distribution of mtDNA sequence variation by human migration that occurred in the last 6,500 years. So this substitution rate, which is in the mitochondrial DNA, is occurring at such a fast rate that going back to when we would have had mitochondrial Eve, it should have been 6,500 years based on their observed rate.
Apparently, so just as a so I was just digging through papers that cited that paper, and I found one called, from 2 years ago, Variation in the Substitution Rates Among the Human Mitochondrial Haplogroup U Sublineages. I'm not going to read the abstract because it seems very, very technical, but there's an important sentence here. They say, the obtained molecular rates depended on the data sets, suggesting time dependency. More notable was the rate variation between haplogroups. U4 and U5A stand out as having substantially higher rates than U5B. So,
Also-
like I could read this article in full at some point. But what it seems like they're saying is that yes, the mutation rate is can be very, very high, depending on which sample size you look at, or what sample groups you look at. So it could be that the 25-year-old study was looking. I mean, they looked at what, like 137 people or something like that. It could be that the sample they were looking at was
sample.
I just
restricted
want
in that regard. Go ahead.
Sorry, I also just want to add in that mitochondrial DNA is very different from just your regular genomic DNA. And it should be mentioned that mitochondrial DNA is found within the mitochondria, which we just, a while ago, discussed how mitochondrial evolution existed. So that variation could also be partially due to that fact as well, or at least that the evidence that we presented there.
Right. Guys, it's been a great conversation. Ian, it's been too long. Dr. Blitz, really enjoyed it, man. I'd love to have positive engagements like this. Science, thanks for being here. I got to go. So, Shabbat Shalom.
See you around.
Yeah, thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for coming on up here.
Yep.
It's a bit late for the Shabbat Shalom, bro. It's like 10 something.
Yeah, no, I gotta. I also gotta go. But it's so nice to meet you, Scientific Snitch. Do you have like a different name that you like being called, or is that fun?
You could call me Ella. I just like
Ella.
to debunk stuff on here.
Yeah. No, I follow you. I like your videos.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I'd love to tell you, if you're thinking about getting like deeper into this space, there's like some like debate advice I would like absolutely love to give you in like Discord or something. But I super appreciate you coming up. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna end stream for the night because I've been streaming for like 5 hours. But yeah.
Oh man, I totally get you. I'll let you go. But yeah, I would love to have some advice. English
Yeah.
isn't really my
No.
first language, so it's like a little,
No, you were killing
yeah.
it, and I think like
It
the
isn't?
key thing is that like you have all the information, like you have the knowledge base. Um, uh, yeah, you have the like I think you have like the most important component, which is like the knowledge base. Yeah,
All right, well, I'll let you go. It was
yeah,
really nice meeting you.
yeah. It was nice to meet you as well. Yeah.
You too, Blitz.
Likewise. Take care. All right, I guess I should probably go to bed. I have to catch a train tomorrow morning at 10:30. No, I'm definitely gonna doom scroll for like another 2 hours, to be honest.
True, real, God, real. Yeah, huge WL in the comment section, by the way. No, she did great. She was on it. That was awesome. Um, but yeah, no, it's been great. I love all of you. Thanks all so much for stopping on by and spending this time with me. I wish someone was live that I could send you and like direct you to. But if
Aren't Parker
you
and Dean live? I thought I saw
are
them live a minute
are they
ago.
not? Is it just not showing up in my feed? Like, what's going on?
I mean, they were when I was having joining issues. I saw that they were live, but they may have stopped recently.
Oh yeah, Dean's live on Hi, I'm Dean. Hi. Oh yeah, no, it is just Hi, I'm Dean. Yeah, Dean is live on Hi, I'm Dean. So go raid Dean. But make sure you keep on double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. Dean better not be restarting. So wait, I just told everyone to like share it. I'm so stupid. I'm like literally an autopilot. That's what my brain does when I've been debating for too long. But I hope you enjoyed the debates. If you're 18 or older, you want to see me debate, no live tomorrow. I'm going to be debating RC on modern day debates on YouTube. We're debating on whether or not God exists, whether or not the Christian God
What time?
exists.
Shout it out.
At
Shout, what time is it?
2 p.m. Eastern time. If anybody's 18 or
2 p.m.
older or
Eastern
wants
time.
wants to go play bingo with us, we have bingo sheets, and whoever gets the most bingos in the debate is going to get free Discord Nitro. We would love to do that for you. Come join the Discord, link in bio. You need to copy it and paste it into the Discord app itself. But I'd love to see you all there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Should be an exciting debate. And I'm ready to mulch him. That's all I'm going to say.
Wait, what
is that
the
I'm ready
hell?
to
Wait a
mulch
minute.
him.
Hold on. Modern Day Debates will do weekends at 2 p.m. Eastern time. When
Yep,
I
they
was
sure
trying to
will.
set up a debate there, they were like, "Yeah, we only do 6 p.m. weekdays, 6 p.m. weekdays Eastern." And I'm like, "I can't do that. That's too late for me." That's
Um,
some bull hockey.
yeah, it is. Yeah. Well,
All
so
right.
it goes. Well,
Well, good
I
luck.
hope to.